What if the most hated child in Konoha discovered a power that made him completely unstoppable? Today, we're exploring a world where Naruto Uzumaki doesn't stay weak. He becomes the most dominant force the ninja world has ever seen. Abandoned, beaten, and left with nothing, he stumbles upon the Crimson Gem of Cyttorak and transforms into an unstoppable juggernaut of pure power. This isn't your typical Naruto story. This is about absolute dominance, unbreakable bonds. Get ready to witness the rise of the Crimson Juggernaut.
The night air in Konoha carried a chill that cut deeper than the autumn wind. A small figure darted through the shadows of the village, his movements desperate and erratic. Blood trickled from a gash above his eye, joining the tears that streamed down whisker-marked cheeks. Naruto Uzumaki, age 7, ran for his life. There he is! The demon brat's heading for the east gate. The shout echoed through the darkened streets, accompanied by the sound of heavy footfalls. Tonight's mob was larger than usual, fueled by sake and the anniversary of the Kyuubi attack. Naruto had made the mistake of venturing out for food after 3 days of hiding in his apartment. That mistake might cost him everything. "Please," he whispered to no one, his voice broken between ragged breaths. "Please just leave me alone." A kunai whistled past his ear, embedding itself in a wooden post inches from his face. This wasn't like the usual beatings. The hatred in their eyes tonight promised something final. Naruto's small legs pumped harder as he veered toward the village wall. He'd never attempted to leave before. Where would he even go? But the alternative loomed behind him, gaining ground with every passing second. The mob's voices grew louder, their footsteps closer. Among them were shinobi, their chakra signatures unmistakable even to Naruto's untrained senses. This wasn't just angry civilians. These were ninja, sworn protectors of the village, hunting a child through the streets. "Hokage Jiji," Naruto whispered, feeling betrayal twist inside him. Where was the old man who promised to protect him? Where were the Anbu guards who were supposed to watch over him? A brutal realization struck him as he squeezed through a gap in the village's eastern fence. No one was coming to save him. No one ever had. With one last glance at the village that had never been his home, Naruto Uzumaki disappeared into the darkness of the surrounding forest. Behind him, the village continued its celebration of the Kyuubi's defeat, unaware that they had just driven away their greatest potential defender. 3 weeks later, Naruto barely resembled the boy who had fled Konoha. His clothes hung in tatters from his emaciated frame. His once vibrant blue eyes had dulled, sunken deep into his face. He had survived on berries, stream water, and whatever small game he could catch with crude traps remembered from academy lessons. The forest had given way to rocky terrain as he traveled northeast, away from fire country. He had no destination in mind, only the instinct to put as much distance between himself and Konoha as possible. Thunder rumbled overhead as Naruto climbed a steep incline. Rain had been falling for hours, soaking him to the bone. His fingers, numb with cold, slipped on wet stone as he pulled himself up. "Need shelter," he muttered through chattering teeth. As if answering his desperate prayer, a dark opening appeared in the rock face above him. A cave, partially hidden by overgrown vines and moss. With the last of his strength, Naruto dragged himself toward the entrance. The interior was surprisingly dry. The cave extended deeper than he expected, the passage narrowing before opening into a larger chamber. Strange markings covered the walls, faintly glowing with an ethereal light that cast the space in a crimson hue. At the center of the chamber, resting on a stone pedestal, sat a large gem. It pulsated with power, the same deep red as the markings on the walls. Naruto approached cautiously. Something about the gem called to him, whispering promises of strength, of never being helpless again. "What is this place?" he wondered aloud, his voice echoing in the chamber. The gem pulsed brighter in response, as if acknowledging his presence. Against all reason, Naruto felt drawn to it. He reached out a trembling hand. The moment his fingers touched the smooth surface, the world exploded in crimson light. At last, a worthy vessel. A voice thundered inside his mind, ancient and powerful. "I am Cyttorak, child, and you shall be my avatar in this realm." Pain unlike anything Naruto had ever experienced coursed through his body. He screamed as his muscles expanded, his bones thickened, his very cells reconstructed themselves under the influence of the entity that now shared his existence. Your suffering, your determination, your potential, all perfect. Take my power, child of prophecy. Become unstoppable. Images flooded Naruto's mind, a crimson-armored giant tearing through armies, walking untouched through infernos, standing immovable against gods. Knowledge of abilities and powers beyond his understanding seared themselves into his consciousness. When the transformation finally ended, Naruto Uzumaki collapsed to the stone floor. But the boy who awakened hours later was no longer just Naruto. He was the Juggernaut. The border patrol of Kumogakure had seen many strange things in their years of service, but none quite like the figure that approached their checkpoint 3 days later. "What the hell is that?" whispered one Shunin to his partner, pointing at the massive form walking steadily up the mountain path. It appeared to be a boy, perhaps 8 or 9 years old, but with a physique that defied his apparent age. Corded muscle rippled beneath sun-kissed skin. His hair, bright blonde and untamed, contrasted sharply with the deep red armor that covered portions of his body, a breastplate, gauntlets, and boots that seemed to pulse with an inner light. "Halt!" called the senior guard as Vic drew closer. "Identify yourself!" The boy stopped, fixing them with eyes that burned like sapphires beneath a strange helmet that covered the upper portion of his face. When he spoke, his voice carried a weight beyond his years. "My name is Naruto Uzumaki. I seek asylum in Kumogakure." The guards exchanged glances. The name Uzumaki was known to them, a once great clan nearly exterminated during the wars. But this child's appearance. "And what makes you think Kumo would grant asylum to a strange child?" asked the senior guard, hands subtly shifting toward his weapon. Naruto's expression remained impassive. "Because I offer strength, because I have nowhere else to go." A pause. "And because I know what I am." With deliberate slowness, he reached up and rolled down the collar of his tattered shirt, revealing the seal on his stomach, the spiral pattern unmistakable to any knowledgeable shinobi. The guard's eyes widened in recognition. "You're a Jinchūriki," breathed the younger one. "Konoha's Jinchūriki," specified the senior guard, tension evident in his stance. "What game is this? Why would Konoha's weapon come to us?" "I am no one's weapon," Naruto stated, a flash of anger crossing his features. "Konoha cast me out, tried to kill me." His massive hands clenched into fists. "I found power elsewhere, power I offer to those who would accept me." The senior guard studied him for a long moment before reaching a decision. "Wait here. I'll send for the Raikage." The fourth Raikage of Kumogakure, was not a man easily impressed. Yet as he looked down at the transformed child standing before him in his office, he couldn't help but feel a stirring of curiosity. So Konoha lost control of their Jinchūriki, he mused, massive arms crossed over his chest. "And now you come to us bearing, what exactly? That armor, that physique. They're not natural, not even for a Jinchūriki." Naruto met the Raikage's gaze without flinching. "I am the avatar of Cyttorak, the Crimson Juggernaut. My power comes not from the Kyuubi, but from something older, something beyond the boundaries of this world." "Demonstrate," commanded, skepticism evident in his tone. Without hesitation, Naruto turned to the stone wall of the office. He placed one hand against it, then pushed. The reinforced stone, designed to withstand powerful ninjutsu, cracked under his palm. With minimal effort, he drove his fist through the wall, creating a hole large enough to step through. "I cannot be stopped once I begin to move," Naruto continued calmly. "No physical force can harm me. No genjutsu can enter my mind without permission. I offer this strength to Kumogakure in exchange for a home." A's expression remained neutral, but his eyes betrayed his interest. "And the Kyuubi? What of that power?" "It remains sealed within me, separate from Cyttorak's gift. I have not yet learned to access it." The Raikage rose from his chair, towering over Naruto despite the boy's enhanced physique. "You understand that if I accept you, there will be conditions, training, loyalty tests. You will not simply be given free reign in my village." "I understand," Naruto replied. "I seek belonging, not freedom without responsibility." A studied him for a moment longer before nodding sharply. "Very well. You will be placed under observation. My brother Killer Bee will be assigned as your primary handler. He is our own Jinchūriki. He He understands the burden you carry. And if Konoha comes looking for me? Naruto asked, the first hint of vulnerability showing through his stoic demeanor, his lips curved in a fierce grin. Let them try. Killer Bee's first impression of Naruto Uzumaki was complicated. On one hand, the boy clearly carried deep wounds, not physical ones, but the kind that scarred the soul. On the other, there was something unsettling about the power that radiated from him, power that felt distinctly different from Biju Chakra. They stood on a secluded training ground, high in the mountains surrounding Kumogakure. Mist clung to the peaks, shrouding them in privacy. So you're the runaway from Konoha, yo, B began, circling Naruto slowly. Got yourself some fancy new powers on the go. Naruto remained still, watching B with cautious eyes. The Raikage said you would train me. Training comes after understanding, fool ya fool, B replied, stopping directly in front of Naruto. Show me what you got, then I'll decide what you need to be taught. Without warning, B struck a lightning-fast punch aimed directly at Naruto's face. To his surprise, the boy didn't dodge. The punch connected solidly, but it was B who felt pain explode through his knuckles. What the? B shook his hand, genuine shock registering on his face. It had felt like punching solid steel. Naruto hadn't even blinked. I told you, physical attacks can't harm me. B's eyes narrowed behind his sunglasses. Let's test that theory, you dig? What followed was less a training session and more an escalating series of attacks. B employed taijutsu, ninjutsu, even drawing on the Hachibi's chakra, all to minimal effect. Lightning techniques scattered harmlessly across Naruto's skin. Earth jutsu crumbled against his strength. Even the Hachibi's chakra cloak seemed to slip around him rather than causing damage. Incredible, B muttered, finally pausing to catch his breath. You weren't exaggerating. No, Naruto agreed simply, but there's more. With that, he took 3 steps back, then launched himself forward. The ground cracked beneath his feet as he accelerated to impossible speed, becoming a blur of crimson and gold. Nothing can stop the Juggernaut once he starts moving, Naruto called, his voice carrying over the sound of his charge. B braced himself, drawing fully on the Hachibi's power to form a partial transformation, a massive tentacled arm that he used to intercept Naruto's charge. The collision was catastrophic. The shockwave flattened trees for 50 meters in every direction. When the dust cleared, B found himself driven back nearly 20 meters, deep furrows carved into the earth by his feet, and Naruto stood before him, completely unharmed. Enough, B said, allowing the Hachibi's chakra to recede. I've seen what I needed to see. Naruto's expression remained guarded, and, to his surprise, B broke into a wide grin. You got power, no doubt about that, but power without control is just destruction waiting to happen. He extended a fist toward Naruto. Lucky for you, the mighty Killer Bee is the perfect teacher for a powerhouse like yourself. Naruto stared at the offered fist for a long moment before slowly raising his own and bumping it against B's. First lesson, B continued, his tone softening slightly. Power ain't just about breaking things, it's about protecting what matters. I have nothing to protect, Naruto replied, his voice hollow. That'll change, B assured him. That'll definitely change. The years that followed transformed Naruto in ways that went beyond the physical changes wrought by Cyttorak's power. Under Killer Bee's guidance, he learned to control the immense strength that flowed through his enhanced body. He trained in Kumo's shinobi arts, adapting traditional techniques to complement his unique abilities. His reputation grew throughout Kumogakure, the Crimson Juggernaut, they called him. A living weapon of unparalleled destructive potential, yet fiercely loyal to his adopted village, and particularly to Killer Bee, who had become more than a mentor. They were brothers in all but blood. By his 12th birthday, Naruto stood nearly 6 feet tall, that his body a mass of perfectly defined muscle beneath the crimson armor that had grown with him. The helmet that once seemed too large now fit perfectly, framing eyes that had seen both the depths of human cruelty and the possibility of redemption. Think fast, fool! B's voice rang out across the training ground as 8 ink-black tentacles lashed toward Naruto from different angles. Naruto didn't dodge. Instead, he slammed his palms together, channeling Cyttorak's mystical energy. Crimson bands of Cyttorak! Glowing red bands of energy erupted from his hands, intercepting and binding B's tentacles mid-attack. With a sharp tug, Naruto pulled his mentor off balance, then charged forward. Momentum assault, he called, his body becoming a blur of unstoppable force. B managed to break free of the crimson bands just in time to avoid the full brunt of the charge. But Naruto's shoulder still caught him in the midsection, sending him tumbling backward. Not bad, not bad, B laughed, flipping back to his feet. But still too predictable, you dig? Naruto halted his charge, a rare smile crossing his features. Says the man who always attacks from 8 angles at once. Their banter was interrupted by the arrival of a Kumo Jonin, appearing in a swirl of lightning. Killer B-sama, Naruto-san, the Jonin addressed them with a respectful bow. The Raikage requests your immediate presence. A matter of importance has arisen. B and Naruto exchanged glances before nodding in unison. Whatever A wanted, it would certainly be interesting. The atmosphere in the Raikage's office was tense when they arrived. A stood behind his desk, arms crossed over his massive chest, while Darui and C, his top advisors, flanked him with serious expressions. Ah, good, you're here. A acknowledged their arrival with a curt nod. We've received intelligence that requires immediate action. He gestured to C, who stepped forward with a scroll. Our spies in the Land of Waves have reported Gato Corporation's recent activities. They've effectively taken over the country's shipping, created a stranglehold on their economy, and are now employing missing men to maintain control. Sounds like Waves' problem, not ours, Naruto observed, his tone neutral. Affixed him with a stern gaze. It becomes our problem when those missing none include Zabuza Momochi and potentially others from Kirigakure. The political situation with Kiri is delicate at best. There's more, Darui added, his normally lazy demeanor unusually focused. We've also received word that Konoha has dispatched a team to Wave. Apparently, they were hired under false pretenses for what was supposed to be a C-rank escort mission. Naruto stiffened at the mention of his former village. Which team? Team 7, C replied, consulting his notes, led by Kakashi Hatake. Genin members include Sasuke Uchiha, Sakura Haruno, and Sai, a last-minute replacement for their original 3rd member. A tense silence filled the room. Everyone present knew the significance. Team 7 should have been Naruto's team, had he remained in Konoha. What are your orders, brother? B asked, breaking the silence, straightened to his full height. I'm sending you both to Wave Country. Official mission parameters. Eliminate Gato, stabilize the region, and ensure Kumo's interests are represented in whatever new economic structure emerges. His eyes locked with Naruto's. Unofficial parameters. Assess Konoha's team, particularly Hatake. Gather intelligence on their capabilities, but avoid direct confrontation unless absolutely necessary. We're not looking to start a war. Naruto's expression remained impassive, but the temperature in the room seemed to drop several degrees. And if they recognize me? They won't, assured him with a grim smile. The malnourished, broken child who fled their village 5 years ago bears little resemblance to the Crimson Juggernaut of Kumogakure. But if they do, he shrugged his massive shoulders, make it clear where your loyalties now lie. Naruto nodded, his decision made. When do we leave? Immediately, I replied. A boat is waiting at the southern port. You'll travel as merchants initially. Cover identities have been prepared. As they turned to leave, A called out one final instruction. Naruto. The young Juggernaut paused, looking back over his shoulder. Remember your training. Control. Precision. You represent Kumogakure now. Yes, Raikage-sama, Naruto replied, his voice steady despite the storm brewing inside him. Konoha will see exactly what they threw away. The Land of Waves lived up to its name, mist hanging heavy over the small islands that composed the nation. Naruto and B arrived under the cover of darkness, their small boat gliding silently through the waters surrounding the main island. Remember the plan, B murmured as they approached the shore. Reconnaissance first. No big moves until we understand the full situation. Naruto nodded, though his expression suggested impatience. The crimson armor that usually adorned his body had been temporarily dismissed, replaced by simple black clothing that helped him blend into the shadows. Even without the armor, his physique remained imposing, a fact not lost on the nervous fishermen who had transported them from the mainland. Gato's men patrol the shores, the fishermen whispered as they neared a small, secluded cove. But there are fewer here on the eastern side. "We can handle patrols," Naruto assured him, his confidence absolute. Once ashore, they paid the fisherman generously, ensuring his silence about their arrival. The man disappeared back into the mist, his boat barely making a sound as it slipped away. "Sense anything?" Naruto asked, expanding his awareness as B had taught him. B closed his eyes briefly, communing with the Hachibi. Multiple chakra signatures throughout the island, most concentrated in the central village, and there. He pointed toward the dense forest to the north. Strong signatures, probably shinobi. That's where we'll find Zabuza and the Konoha team. Naruto's jaw tightened at the mention of Konoha, but he maintained his composure. Gato first. Without his money, the missing nin lose their motivation. Agreed. Local intel suggests he stays on his yacht most nights, comes ashore only for business at his headquarters in the village. They moved swiftly through the darkness, two shadows among many, in a land gripped by fear. The poverty was evident even in the outskirts. Abandoned homes, broken down infrastructure, hollow-eyed villagers who scurried indoors at any unusual sound. Gato's headquarters wasn't difficult to find, a modern 3-story building that stood in stark contrast to the rundown structures surrounding it. Guards patrolled the perimeter, their weapons visible, their demeanor suggesting hired thugs rather than trained shinobi. Amateur security, Naruto observed from their vantage point on a nearby roof. No sensor types, standard patrol patterns. B nodded. "Makes our job easier. You want the direct approach or the subtle one?" A cold smile spread across Naruto's face. "When have you known me to be subtle?" Before B could respond, Naruto had already dropped from the roof, landing with surprising lightness despite his mass. The crimson armor of the Juggernaut materialized around him as he straightened, the metal seeming to flow from within his very skin. What the? One guard barely had time to register the imposing figure before Naruto was upon him. "Sleep," Naruto commanded, delivering a precisely measured tap to the man's temple that rendered him instantly unconscious. The second guard managed to raise his sword, but it shattered against Naruto's armored forearm. A look of terror crossed the man's face as he realized what he faced. "Monster!" he gasped, fumbling for the alarm at his belt. "Not quite," Naruto replied, his voice echoing from beneath his helmet. "Just the Juggernaut." Within minutes, every external guard had been neutralized without a single fatality. Naruto stood before the main entrance, B landing silently beside him. "Dramatic as always," B commented with a shake of his head. "Ready to meet the man himself?" Naruto didn't bother responding. Instead, he placed one massive hand against the reinforced door and pushed. Metal groaned, hinges buckled, and the entire security door collapsed inward with a thunderous crash. Alarm bells immediately began ringing throughout the building. Shouts echoed from within as Gato's remaining security forces mobilized. "So much for the element of surprise," B sighed, drawing his swords. Naruto stepped through the ruined doorway, his armored form silhouetted against the night. Sometimes, fear is more effective than stealth. The first wave of guards appeared in the entrance hall, their weapons raised. They hesitated at the sight of the crimson armored giant and his 7-sword-wielding companion. "Last chance," Naruto announced, his voice carrying throughout the building. "Surrender, and you live. Resist, and you fall." One brave or foolish guard fired a crossbow. The bolt struck Naruto's chest plate and bounced off harmlessly. "Wrong choice," Naruto said, almost sadly. Then he charged. What followed could hardly be called a battle. It was a demonstration of power, of control, of the inevitable. Naruto moved through the building like a force of nature, unstoppable yet precise. Guards were incapacitated with measured strikes, none killed but all rendered thoroughly unable to continue fighting. B followed in his wake, his unique sword style creating a whirlwind of steel that disarmed and disabled without killing. Together, they ascended through the building, floor by floor, until they reached the top level. Gato's office door was an ornate affair, imported wood with gold inlays. Naruto didn't bother with subtlety. One punch reduced it to splinters. Inside, they found not the confident shipping magnate they expected, but a terrified small man attempting to escape through a hidden passage behind his desk. "Gato," Naruto stated, not a question but a declaration. The small man froze, then slowly turned, his expensive suit contrasting sharply with the sweat that poured down his face. "Whoever you are," Gato began, his voice attempting authority but quavering with fear. "You've made a terrible mistake. Do you know who I am? What resources I command?" "We know exactly who you are," B replied, twirling one sword casually. "The question is, do you know who we are?" Gato's eyes darted between them, calculation replacing some of his fear. "Kumo Shinobi, buy your headbands. The Raikage sent you? Whatever he's paying, I'll triple it." Naruto stepped forward, the floor creaking beneath his weight. "This isn't about money. Everything is about money," Gato insisted, gaining confidence as he retreated behind his massive desk. "Name your price. Everyone has one." "You misunderstand," Naruto said softly, reaching out with one armored hand. "This isn't a negotiation." The desk that separated them, solid oak that must have weighed hundreds of pounds, was lifted with one hand and casually tossed aside, crashing through the nearby window in a shower of glass. Gato's composure crumbled completely. "Please, I have offshore accounts, millions in untraceable funds. I can." His pleading was cut short as Naruto grasped the front of his expensive suit, lifting him until they were face to face. "The people of Wave Country have suffered enough under your control," Naruto stated, his voice like iron. "Here's what happens now. You will sign over control of all shipping operations to a council elected by the Wave citizens. You will return all extorted funds, and then you will leave, never to return." "And if I refuse?" Gato managed, his bravado a thin veneer over absolute terror. Naruto's grip tightened slightly, the fabric beginning to tear. "Then I throw you from this window, and we find someone more reasonable to handle your affairs. Your choice." The decision, when faced with the implacable force of the Juggernaut, wasn't difficult to make. By dawn, Gato's reign over Wave Country had effectively ended. Under B and Naruto's supervision, the businessman had signed multiple documents transferring control of his local operations to a hastily assembled council of village elders. His personal yacht had been confiscated, his remaining mercenaries disbanded, and the man himself escorted to the mainland with a clear understanding of what would happen if he ever returned. "One problem solved," B remarked as they watched Gato's small boat disappear into the morning mist. "Now for the ninja situation." Naruto nodded, his expression thoughtful. "Zabuza Momochi has no reason to continue fighting without Gato's payment, but the Konoha team might complicate things," B finished. "They won't know the situation's resolved." They made their way north through the forest, following the chakra signatures B had sensed earlier. As they drew closer, sounds of combat reached them. The clash of metal, the distinctive whoosh of fire jutsu, shouts and cries of exertion. "Seems we're just in time for the main event," B observed as they concealed themselves at the edge of a large clearing. The scene before them was chaotic. A dome of ice mirrors dominated the center of the clearing, while nearby, two figures clashed in a blur of movement, one wrapped in bandages with a massive sword, the other with gravity-defying silver hair and a revealed Sharingan eye. "Zabuza and Kakashi," Naruto identified them, his voice tight. Then his gaze shifted to the ice dome, and inside. Through gaps in the ice, they could see flashes of movement. A dark-haired boy in blue dodging Senbon needles thrown by a masked figure who moved between the ice mirrors at impossible speeds. "The Uchiha," Naruto noted, his tone neutral, fighting what appears to be a Yuki clan member with an ice-release Kekkei Genkai. B glanced at his companion, reading the tension in his posture. "Remember our orders. Observation only, unless absolutely necessary." Naruto nodded stiffly, but his eyes remained fixed on the battle. They watched as Sasuke's movements became increasingly desperate, his body accumulating Senbon as the masked ninja outmaneuvered him at every turn. Then something unexpected happened. A third figure appeared inside the ice dome, a pale boy with short black hair who moved with the fluid grace of specialized training. "That must be Sai," Naruto murmured. "My replacement." The newcomer's arrival changed the dynamic of the fight. Working together, Sasuke and Sai began to counter the ice user's attacks more effectively. Meanwhile, outside the dome, Kakashi and Zabuza continued their deadly dance, neither gaining a clear advantage. "They're not bad," B acknowledged. "The Uchiha's fast, and the Pale One has unusual techniques." Naruto remained silent, his expression unreadable beneath his helmet. They continued observing as the battles intensified. Sasuke's eyes suddenly blazed red, the Sharingan awakening in the heat of combat. Sai unleashed animated ink creatures that sought out the masked ninja between mirror jumps. Outside, Kakashi began forming hand seals for what appeared to be a finishing move, lightning chakra gathering in his palm with the sound of 1,000 birds. Chidori, Naruto identified. His signature assassination technique. Before Kakashi could strike, however, the battlefield dynamics shifted dramatically. The ice dome shattered as Sasuke and Sai finally landed a significant blow on their opponent, sending the masked ninja crashing to the ground, their mask cracking. Seeing his companion in danger, Zabuza disengaged from Kakashi and moved to intercept, only to find himself immobilized by a pack of ninja dogs that erupted from the ground at Kakashi's command. The silver-haired Jonin resumed his lightning technique, charging toward the defenseless Zabuza with lethal intent. Now might be a good time to intervene, B suggested, tensing to move. Naruto was already in motion, his body becoming a blur of crimson as he activated his unstoppable momentum. He crossed the clearing in an instant, positioning himself directly between Kakashi and his intended target. The look of shock on Kakashi's visible eye would have been comical under different circumstances. The Chidori, aimed at Zabuza's heart, instead struck Naruto's armored chest and dissipated harmlessly, the lightning chakra grounding itself through the mystical metal without effect. Impossible, Kakashi breathed, leaping backward to create distance between himself and this unexpected obstacle. Silence fell over the clearing as all combatants registered the new arrivals. B stepped forward to stand beside Naruto, his swords ready but not threatening. "That's enough fighting for one day, I'd say," B announced, his usual rhythmic speech temporarily set aside for clarity. "Circumstances have changed. Gato is gone. His contract with you, Zabuza Momochi, is null and void." Zabuza, still restrained by the ninja hounds, narrowed his eyes suspiciously. "And who exactly are you to make such claims?" "Killer Bee of Kumogakure." B introduced himself with a slight bow. "And my partner, the Crimson Juggernaut." Naruto remained silent, his imposing figure drawing all eyes. The red dome of his helmet concealed his features completely, giving no hint of the turmoil he felt standing before those who represented his past. "Kumogakure has no jurisdiction here," Kakashi stated cautiously, his Sharingan still uncovered and focused on Naruto. "This is a matter between Konoha Shinobi and missing nin from Kirigakure." "Perhaps," Naruto finally spoke, his voice deeper and more resonant than it had been in their earlier mission, deliberately disguised. "But when two foreign powers clash in a neutral nation under Kumo's protection, we have every right to intervene." Kakashi's eye narrowed. "Since when is Wave Country under Kumo's protection?" "Since approximately 3 hours ago," B replied with a shrug, "when we convinced Gato to sign over his interests and leave, permanently." This announcement created a ripple of reaction through the gathered shinobi. The masked ninja, now revealed as a young person with delicate features, had risen to stand protectively near Zabuza. Sasuke and Sai had moved to flank Kakashi, while a pink-haired girl, Sakura, Naruto presumed, emerged cautiously from the trees where she had been guarding an elderly man. "You expect us to believe that two shinobi accomplished what an entire country couldn't?" Sasuke challenged, his newly awakened Sharingan fixed on Naruto's armored form. "Belief is irrelevant," Naruto replied coldly. "Facts remain facts regardless of your acceptance of them." B stepped forward, ever the diplomat. "Look, we didn't come here for conflict. Our mission is to stabilize this region, which means removing Gato and ensuring peace. Your mission, I'm guessing, was to protect the bridge builder." He nodded toward the elderly man. "With Gato gone, that mission is essentially complete. There's no reason for anyone else to die today." Kakashi seemed to consider this, his tactical mind weighing options. "Zabuza? Your position?" The demon of the mist gave a harsh laugh despite his restraints. "No money, no mission. The brat's right about that much. Release these dogs, and we'll be on our way." "And we're supposed to trust you'll leave peacefully?" Sakura asked skeptically. "You're not," Naruto interjected. "You're trusting that we'll ensure it." He turned his helmeted head towards Zabuza. "Kumogakure could use a swordsman of your caliber, Momochi. The Raikage authorized me to extend an offer, sanctuary and employment for both you and your companion." This unexpected proposition created another moment of tense silence. Zabuza's eyes narrowed in calculation. Why would Kumo want missing nin from Kiri? he asked. Because talent is talent, B answered simply, and the Raikage appreciates strength, regardless of its origin. Zabuza exchanged a glance with his young companion, some unspoken communication passing between them. Finally, he nodded. Release me, Hadake. We accept Kumo's offer, conditionally pending discussion of terms. Kakashi hesitated, then made a hand sign. The ninja hounds disappeared in puffs of smoke. This isn't over, Zabuza. For today it is, Naruto stated with finality. Killer B will escort Zabuza and his companion to our temporary headquarters in the village. I'll remain to ensure there are no misunderstandings. B shot Naruto a warning glance, clearly concerned about leaving him alone with the Konoha shinobi. Naruto gave an almost imperceptible nod. He would maintain control. As B led Zabuza and the masked ninja away, an uncomfortable silence settled over the clearing. Naruto stood immobile, facing the team that, in another life, might have been his. You never introduced yourself properly, Kakashi finally said, his tone casual but his eyes sharp. The Crimson Juggernaut is quite a title, but it tells us nothing about who you are. My identity is irrelevant to our current situation, Naruto replied. All that matters is that I represent Kumogakure's interests here. Sasuke stepped forward, his Sharingan still active. That armor, it's unlike anything I've seen. Not chakra-based, is it? Perceptive, Naruto acknowledged. No, it's not chakra. It's something far older and more powerful. Are you some kind of Kekkei Genkai user? Sakura asked, curiosity temporarily overriding her caution. A bitter laugh escaped Naruto's lips before he could suppress it. My power is not inherited, not in the way you mean. Then what is it? Side question, his expression blank but his eyes calculating. How did you neutralize Kakashi-sensei's Chidori without even flinching? Some mysteries aren't meant to be solved, Naruto replied evasively. Then, changing the subject. Your bridge builder can complete his project without interference now. I suggest you focus on that and prepare to return to Konoha. Your mission here is done. Kakashi hadn't moved, his single visible eye studying Naruto with unsettling intensity. There's something familiar about you, he said softly. Have we met before? For a moment, Naruto was tempted to remove his helmet to reveal himself to the man who should have been his sensei, to see the shock and recognition on their faces. The moment passed, replaced by cold resolve. No, he lied smoothly. You've never known me. With that, he turned and began walking away, each step measured and deliberate. Wait, Sasuke called after him. Fight me. Naruto paused but didn't turn around. No. Are you afraid? Sasuke challenged, the arrogance in his tone painfully familiar. Now Naruto did turn, fixing the Uchiha with a stare that seemed to penetrate even through his helmet. Fear has nothing to do with it. Fighting you would be pointless, like an ocean fighting a puddle. Sasuke's face contorted with anger. You. Enough, Sasuke, Kakashi interrupted, placing a restraining hand on his student's shoulder. We've completed our mission. Let's not create international incidents by challenging foreign shinobi to impromptu duels. Naruto nodded once to Kakashi, acknowledging the Jonin's wisdom, then continued on his way, feeling their eyes on his back until he disappeared into the forest. Only when he was well away from the clearing did he allow himself to remove his helmet, revealing features twisted with suppressed emotion. Seeing them, his former village, the team that should have been his, had affected him more than he wanted to admit. You were right to leave, he told himself quietly, running a hand through sweat-dampened blonde hair. They never saw your worth. Never will. With a deep breath, he replaced the helmet and headed toward the village, toward B and their new recruits, toward the future he had chosen rather than the past that had rejected him. The aftermath of the Wave Country mission established a pattern that would define the next 2 years. Naruto and B became Kumogakure's premier diplomatic combat team, sent to handle situations requiring both overwhelming force and delicate negotiation. Their reputation spread throughout the elemental nations, the unstoppable Juggernaut and the rhythmic Jinchūriki, brothers in all but blood, representing the growing influence of the Cloud Village. Zabuza and Haku, as the masked ninja had introduced himself, integrated into Kumo's forces with surprising ease. Zabuza joined the village's elite swordsman unit, while Haku's unique abilities earned him a place in the Raikage's Special Operations Division. As for Naruto, his power continued to grow. Under B's guidance, he finally began to access and control the Kyuubi's chakra, integrating it with Cyttorak's mystical energy in ways that even the ancient entity found fascinating. The combination created techniques that defied conventional understanding of ninjutsu, crimson-tinged chakra constructs that possessed both the Kyuubi's corrosive nature and Cyttorak's unstoppable momentum. Through it all, news from Konoha reached them regularly, courtesy of Kumo's intelligence network. The Chunin exams approached, to be held in Konoha that year. Team 7 had been entered, along with numerous other teams from across the nations. Kumo will participate, of course, A announced during a briefing in his office. But the question is, do we send you, Naruto? Naruto, now 14 and standing over 6 feet tall, his crimson armor gleaming in the afternoon light, considered the question carefully. It would be a statement, he acknowledged. My first official return to Konoha since I left. A dangerous statement, Darui cautioned. Your identity has remained secret so far, but prolonged exposure in your former village increases the risk of recognition. B, lounging against the wall, offered his perspective. Might be time to stop hiding, you know? Let them see what they lost. Let them feel the cost. It's not about revenge, Naruto stated, though the slight tightening of his jaw suggested otherwise. No, A agreed, fixing him with a penetrating stare. It's about power projection. Konoha took the Uzumaki legacy for granted. Now they'll see that legacy wearing Kumo's colors. After lengthy discussion, the decision was made. Naruto would participate in the Chunin exams, not disguising his identity, but not announcing it either. He would be part of a special team alongside 2 of Kumo's most promising genin, with B as their official Jonin sensei. As preparations began, Naruto found himself standing atop Kumogakure's highest peak, looking out over the village that had become his home. The sun set behind distant mountains, casting the world in shades of gold and crimson. Nervous about going back? B's voice came from behind him. Naruto didn't turn. Not nervous, just reflecting. B moved to stand beside him. On what might have been. On what is, Naruto corrected. 7 years ago, I was a broken child fleeing for my life. Now. He looked down at his armored hands, flexing fingers that could crush stone to dust. Now I return as something they never could have imagined. B placed a hand on his shoulder, one of the few people who could touch Naruto with such casual affection. Just remember who you are now, not who they tried to make you be. Naruto nodded, his resolve hardening. The Crimson Juggernaut of Kumogakure, brother to Killer B, avatar of Cyttorak. And one more thing. B added with a rare, serious expression. What's that? B's face broke into a wide grin. The most hard-headed, stubborn fool I've ever had the pleasure to call family. Despite himself, Naruto laughed, a sound that had become less rare over the years, but was still precious to those who cared about him. Takes one to know one, B. Together, they watched the last light fade from the sky, the first stars appearing overhead. Whatever awaited in Konoha, Naruto would face it not as the scorned orphan he once was, but as the unstoppable force he had become. Konoha hadn't changed much in 7 years. The same imposing walls surrounded the village. The same faces watched from the Hokage monument. The same bustle and energy filled the streets. Yet to Naruto, walking through the main gate alongside B and his teammates, everything felt smaller somehow, less significant than the memories that had haunted him. Their arrival created an immediate stir. The Kumogakure delegation always attracted attention during international events, but the presence of a crimson armored giant and the famous Killer B generated outright fascination. Whispers followed them as they made their way toward the administrative building where foreign teams were to register. They're staring, muttered Karui, one of Naruto's teammates, a fiery-tempered girl with red hair and amber eyes. Let them, replied Omoi, their other teammate, a thoughtful boy with a perpetual lollipop in his mouth. Psychological advantage. Naruto said nothing, his eyes straight ahead, deliberately avoiding looking at places that might trigger unwanted memories. The ramen stand, the academy, certain alleyways where beatings had occurred. At the registration desk, the Chunin attendant gaped openly at Naruto's imposing figure before stammering a request for identification. Team B from Kumogakure, B announced, handing over their documentation. Here for the exams, ready to show our mettle without delay. The attendant reviewed their papers, his eyes widening as he reached Naruto's information. Uzumaki Naruto? He read aloud, his voice carrying in the quiet room. Several nearby Konoha shinobi turned at the name, expressions ranging from confusion to disbelief. Naruto merely nodded, his face impassive beneath his helmet. The same Uzumaki Naruto who left Konoha 7 years ago? The attendant asked, unable to help himself. The very same, Naruto confirmed, his voice deliberately pitched to carry, though much has changed since then. The attendant swallowed nervously, stamped their documentation, and handed it back with shaking hands. You're approved for participation. The first exam begins tomorrow at 9 a.m. in the Academy building, room 301. As they turned to leave, they found their path blocked by a silver-haired jonin whose single visible eye crinkled in what might have been a smile or a grimace. Kakashi Hatake, B acknowledged with a nod. Long time no see. Killer B, Kakashi returned the greeting before shifting his attention to Naruto. And the Crimson Juggernaut, or should I say, Naruto Uzumaki. The room had gone completely silent, all attention focused on this unexpected confrontation. Naruto met Kakashi's gaze steadily. Either is accurate, he replied evenly. Do you have business with us, Hatake-san? Kakashi's eye narrowed slightly at the formal address. The Hokage would like to speak with you, both of you, he added, including B in his glance. Official or personal? B questioned, suddenly serious. Let's call it diplomatic, Kakashi suggested. No summons, no demands, just a request for conversation. Naruto and B exchanged a glance, a silent communication passing between them. Finally, Naruto nodded. Very well. Karui, Omoi, secure our accommodations. We'll meet you there later. The two genin looked uncertain but followed their orders, leaving the registration building with backward glances at their teammate and sensei. Kakashi led Naruto and B through the village toward the Hokage Tower. News of their arrival seemed to spread faster than they walked. Villagers stopped to stare, and more than once Naruto caught whispered conversations. The demon brat? Completely different. Kumo shinobi now. What happened to him? He ignored them all, keeping his focus forward, his stride measured and confident. Only B, who knew him better than anyone, could detect the tension in his shoulders, the slight stiffness in his movements that betrayed his discomfort at being back in the village that had rejected him. The Hokage's office hadn't changed either. The same desk, the same view of the village, the same elderly man in white and red robes. Hiruzen Sarutobi looked older than Naruto remembered, the lines on his face deeper, his posture slightly stooped. But his eyes were as sharp as ever as they took in the transformed boy who had once called him Gigi. Naruto, the Hokage said softly, rising from his chair. You've grown. Hokage-sama, Naruto replied with formal correctness, offering a shallow bow appropriate between foreign dignitaries. Thank you for your invitation. Hiruzen's eyes reflected a complex mixture of emotions, sadness, regret, curiosity. Please, both of you, be seated. He gestured to chairs placed before his desk. B took a seat casually, but Naruto remained standing. I prefer to stand, he explained, though the truth was simpler. The chairs looked too fragile to support his armored weight. As you wish, Hiruzen conceded, resuming his own seat. I must say, your appearance in the Chunin exams is unexpected. We had heard rumors of Kumogakure's Crimson Juggernaut, but I never suspected that it was the child you failed to protect. Naruto finished, his tone neutral but the words cutting. Hiruzen winced visibly. I deserve that. My failures regarding you are among my deepest regrets, Naruto. With respect, Hokage-sama, Naruto replied. Regret changes nothing. I've come as a representative of Kumogakure, not to revisit the past. Of course, Hiruzen acknowledged, his expression becoming more professional. Then let us discuss the present. Your participation in the exams raises certain questions, particularly given your unique status. My status is simple, Naruto stated. I am a genin of Kumogakure, eligible for promotion through these exams like any other participant. A genin, Kakashi interjected from his position by the door, who has completed A-rank missions as the Crimson Juggernaut, who faced me in Wave Country and neutralized my Chidori without effort, who possesses power that clearly exceeds genin level. Rank and power aren't always aligned, B pointed out reasonably. Your own Uchiha carries a Kekkei Genkai that exceeds his rank. Will you exclude him as well? Hiruzen raised a hand to forestall further argument. No one is suggesting exclusion. I merely wish to understand the nature of Naruto's transformation. The reports describe abilities unlike any known Kekkei Genkai or ninjutsu. Naruto considered his response carefully. There was strategic value in keeping some mysteries, but also in demonstrating enough to establish his position. My power comes from Cyttorak, he finally explained, an entity beyond the elemental nations whose avatar I became after leaving Konoha. This power exists alongside the Kyuubi, not replacing it. Hiruzen and Kakashi exchanged significant glances at this revelation. And Kumogakure has helped you control both these powers? Hiruzen asked. Killer Bee has been instrumental in my training, Naruto confirmed, inclining his head toward his mentor, as has the Raikage. I see. Hiruzen leaned back in his chair, his expression unreadable. And your intentions toward Konoha? Professional, Naruto answered without hesitation. I represent Kumogakure now. My personal history with this village is irrelevant to my current duties. A long silence followed this declaration, broken finally by Hiruzen's weary sigh. You've changed so much, Naruto. I wonder if anything of the boy I knew remains. For the first time, Naruto's composure wavered slightly. His hand rose to his helmet, hesitating a moment before removing it entirely. Blonde hair, longer now and swept back, framed features that had matured but still carried the distinctive whisker marks on his cheeks. His blue eyes, once bright with innocent mischief, now held a depth and intensity that spoke of hard-won wisdom. The boy you knew survived despite everything, Naruto said quietly, but he grew into a man you never had the chance to know. The naked emotion on Hiruzen's face might have moved Naruto once. Now, he simply replaced his helmet, his moment of vulnerability passed. If there's nothing else, Hokage-sama, we should join our team. The exams begin early tomorrow. Hiruzen nodded slowly. Of course. Thank you for your candor, Naruto. Know that whatever path you've chosen, I am glad to see you thriving. Naruto offered another formal bow before turning to leave, Bee following close behind. As the door closed behind them, Bee gave his shoulder a supportive squeeze. You handled that well, he murmured as they descended the tower stairs. It was easier than I expected, Naruto admitted. Looking at him now, he seems smaller somehow. The giants of our childhood often do when we return as adults, Bee observed with uncharacteristic philosophical insight. They made their way through the evening streets, ignoring the stares and whispers that followed them. Tomorrow would bring the beginning of the exams, and with them, Naruto's true reintroduction to the shinobi world that had once cast him aside. The first phase of the Chunin exams, a written test designed to evaluate information gathering skills, proved trivially simple for Team B. Naruto's enhanced senses allowed him to hear the scratching of pencils from those who knew the answers. Karui and Omoi had their own methods, techniques developed in Kumogakure specifically for intelligence operations. It was during the second phase, the survival test in the Forest of Death, that Naruto's return to Konoha became truly noteworthy. Teams from various villages had been given either a Heaven or Earth scroll, with instructions to acquire the complementary scroll by any means necessary and reach the central tower within 5 days. Team B received an Earth scroll. Within the first hour, they had acquired a Heaven scroll. Naruto simply tracked down the nearest team, appeared before them in full Juggernaut regalia, and politely requested they surrender their scroll. Few were willing to challenge the crimson-armored giant whose reputation had spread throughout the preliminary rounds. That was almost too easy, Karui complained as they made their way toward the central tower, barely 3 hours into the 5-day limit. We didn't even get to fight. Be grateful, Omoi cautioned, his ever-present lollipop clicking against his teeth. Some of these teams are dangerous, especially that sand team with the redhead. Something about him feels wrong. Naruto had noticed the same thing about Gaara of the Sand, a familiar energy signature that resonated with the Kyuubi's chakra. He's a Jinchūriki, he had informed his teammates privately. Like Bee and myself, though his seal seems imperfect. Their direct path to the tower was interrupted by an unexpected commotion, the sounds of battle and a spike of malevolent chakra that Naruto recognized immediately. Change of plans, he announced, altering their course toward the disturbance. Something's happening that we should investigate. They arrived at a small clearing to find Team 7, Sasuke, Sakura, and Sai, facing off against a lone grass ninja. But something was clearly wrong. The grass ninja moved with unnatural flexibility, their face seeming to peel away in places, revealing pale skin beneath. Sasuke was on one knee, clutching his shoulder in pain, while Sakura stood protectively before him. Sai was creating ink beasts that the grass ninja dispatched with casual ease. Orochimaru, Naruto identified under his breath, recognizing the chakra signature from intelligence briefings. The rogue Sannin, experimenter on children, seeker of forbidden jutsu, and apparently infiltrator of the Chunin exams. "What's our play?" Karui whispered, hand on her sword hilt. Naruto assessed the situation in an instant. Diplomatic incident be damned. Orochimaru is an S-rank threat to all villages. Karui, Omoi, extract Team 7. I'll engage Orochimaru directly. Alone? Omoi hissed, eyes wide. That's an order. Naruto cut him off, his voice brooking no argument. B taught us to recognize when a threat exceeds standard protocols. This is one of those times. Without waiting for further discussion, Naruto stepped into the clearing, the full power of the Juggernaut manifesting around him. His crimson armor gleamed ominously in the dappled forest light. "Orochimaru of the Sannin," he announced, his voice carrying across the clearing. "Your disguise is poor, your presence unauthorized, and your actions constitute an act of war against both Konoha and, by extension, the allied nations participating in these exams." The disguised Sannin froze, head turning with snake-like precision toward this new arrival. My, he said, voice shifting from feminine to masculine. "The rumors are true, the Crimson Juggernaut himself, gracing us with his presence." He abandoned the pretense of his disguise, peeling away the false face to reveal his true features. Pale skin, yellow serpentine eyes, purple markings. "Step away from the Konoha team," Naruto commanded, advancing steadily, Orochimaru's thin lips curved in amusement. "Or what, precisely? Do you imagine yourself a match for me, boy? Juggernaut or not, you're decades too young to challenge a Sannin." "Age is irrelevant," Naruto replied calmly. "Power is what matters, and mine exceeds yours." As he spoke, Karui and Omoi executed their part of the plan, using the distraction to flank around and reach Team 7. Sasuke appeared to be semi-conscious, some kind of marking visible on his neck where he clutched it in pain. Orochimaru noticed their movement and frowned. "Interfering with my plans is unwise, Kumonin. I have business with the Uchiha." "Your business is concluded," Naruto stated, and charged. What followed was a demonstration of power that would be discussed in hushed tones throughout the shinobi world for years to come. Naruto, utilizing the full might of Cyttorak's blessing, became truly unstoppable. Each step cracked the earth beneath him. His momentum, once established, could not be hindered by any technique Orochimaru deployed. The Sannin attempted to evade, his body contorting in unnatural ways, but Naruto anticipated his movements with uncanny precision. When Orochimaru summoned a massive snake, Naruto tore through it with his bare hands, the mystical energy of Cyttorak overwhelming even the enhanced flesh of the summon. "Impossible," Orochimaru hissed as Naruto's armored fist connected with his chest, sending him crashing through multiple trees. "What manner of power is this?" "Something beyond your comprehension," Naruto replied, continuing his relentless advance. "Something you cannot steal, cannot replicate, cannot defeat." Orochimaru, realizing the tide of battle was turning against him, attempted his signature technique, his neck elongating unnaturally as he lunged toward Naruto with fangs bared, aiming for the small gap between helmet and breastplate. Naruto didn't dodge. The fangs struck his exposed skin and shattered. "My body is impervious," Naruto explained as Orochimaru recoiled in pain and shock, "even to your cursed seal." For the first time, genuine fear flickered across the Sannin's features. He made a series of hand signs, preparing to retreat, but Naruto was faster. Crimson bands erupted from his outstretched hands, wrapping around Orochimaru's limbs, binding him in place. Crimson bands of Cyttorak. Naruto identified the technique. They can hold even gods in place. A rogue ninja stands no chance. Orochimaru struggled against the mystical restraints, his face contorting with effort. "This isn't over, Juggernaut," he snarled. "Your power is impressive, but I am immortal. Time is on my side." "Perhaps," Naruto acknowledged, tightening the bands until Orochimaru gasped in pain. "But for now, you answer to me." Before he could press his advantage further, a new presence made itself known. multiple chakra signatures converging on their location, including several Jonin-level individuals. Anbu, responding to the massive chakra discharge and destruction in the forest. Orochimaru, sensing opportunity in the distraction, performed some kind of internal technique. His body liquefied, somehow slipping through the crimson bands despite their mystical nature. As he reconstituted himself several meters away, his expression was a mixture of pain, rage, and reluctant respect. "We will meet again, Juggernaut," he promised, "and next time, I'll be better prepared for your unique abilities." With that, he sank into the ground, escaping just as the first Anbu appeared in the clearing. Naruto considered pursuit but decided against it. His primary concern had been preventing whatever Orochimaru planned for Sasuke, and in that, at least, he had succeeded. He turned to find Karui and Omoe helping Team 7. Sasuke was conscious now but clearly weakened, the strange marking on his neck partially formed but incomplete. Naruto's intervention had apparently interrupted whatever process Orochimaru had begun. "You saved us," Sakura acknowledged, her expression a mixture of gratitude and confusion as she looked up at Naruto's imposing figure. "But why? We're competitors. Some threats transcend competition," Naruto replied simply. "Orochimaru is an enemy to all villages." The Anbu surrounded them, masks betraying nothing of their thoughts as they assessed the situation. Their captain stepped forward, addressing Naruto directly. "The Hokage must be informed of this incident immediately. All of you will come with us to the tower." Naruto nodded his agreement. "My team has both scrolls already. We were headed there when we encountered Orochimaru." The Anbu captain seemed momentarily taken aback by this casual declaration of success so early in the exam, but recovered quickly. "Nevertheless, your testimony will be required, and the Uchiha needs medical attention." As they were escorted toward the central tower, Sasuke managed to shake off enough of his disorientation to approach Naruto directly. "Why did you help us?" he demanded, his voice strained but determined. "What do you want?" Naruto regarded him silently for a moment. The boy who might have been his teammate, his rival, perhaps even his friend in another life, now looked at him with suspicion and wounded pride. "Nothing," Naruto finally answered. "I want nothing from you, Uchiha. Consider it a professional courtesy between shinobi." Sasuke's eyes narrowed, clearly unsatisfied with this response, but before he could press further, they arrived at the tower. Medical Ninja immediately took charge of him, whisking him away for treatment while the others were led to a debriefing room where the Hokage and several Jonin instructors, including Kakashi and B, awaited them. The debriefing was thorough. Naruto recounted the encounter precisely, describing Orochimaru's techniques and apparent objectives without embellishment. Throughout his report, he noticed Hiruzen's expression growing increasingly grave. "This is deeply concerning," the Hokage said when Naruto had finished. "Orochimaru's interest in Sasuke Uchiha, his infiltration of the exams, the security implications are severe." "Will the exams continue?" Kakashi asked, voicing the question on everyone's mind. Hiruzen stroked his beard thoughtfully. "Yes, but with enhanced security. We cannot show weakness by canceling an international event of this magnitude. But all Jonin instructors will remain on high alert." His gaze shifted to Naruto. "You acted with commendable initiative, Naruto. Kumogakure should be proud of their representative." "I acted as any responsible shinobi would," Naruto replied neutrally, though he noted the irony of receiving praise from the man who had once failed to protect him. As the debriefing concluded, teams were directed to their assigned quarters within the tower to await the completion of the second exam's time limit. B pulled Naruto aside as they left the meeting room. "Taking on Orochimaru solo was reckless," he chided, though there was pride evident in his voice. "But necessary," Naruto countered, "and educational. I now have direct combat experience against a Sannin." B shook his head, a smile playing at his lips, always thinking of the tactical advantage. "You've come a long way from that scared kid I met years ago." Naruto's expression softened slightly behind his helmet. "Thanks to you, brother." The affectionate term, rarely spoken aloud, earned him a fist bump from B, their private gesture of solidarity since the early days of their partnership. As they rejoined Karui and Omoe, Naruto reflected on the day's events. His return to Konoha had already proven more eventful than anticipated, and the exams had barely begun. Whatever came next, one thing was certain. The shinobi world would never again underestimate the Crimson Juggernaut of Kumogakure. The preliminary matches to reduce the number of candidates for the final tournament provided the perfect stage for Naruto to demonstrate his abilities to the assembled dignitaries and jonin from various villages. His opponent, a genin from Amegakure who specialized in water techniques, never stood a chance. As Naruto entered the arena, his crimson armor gleaming under the harsh lights, a hush fell over the spectators. Many had heard rumors of the Juggernaut, but had never witnessed him in combat. Even those who had seen glimpses of his power during the Forest of Death incident were unprepared for the methodical display that followed. The Eminem opened with a barrage of water senbon, thousands of pressurized droplets that could pierce steel. They bounced harmlessly off Naruto's armor, not even leaving a mark. When his opponent escalated to more powerful techniques, water dragons, crushing waves, even a localized rainstorm that reduced visibility, Naruto simply walked through them, unstoppable and unbothered. "Is that all?" he asked when the Aminin paused, panting from chakra exertion. The desperation in his opponent's eyes was answer enough. With a single calculated charge, Naruto crossed the arena, his momentum building with each step. At the last moment, he pulled his punch, the air pressure alone from his armored fist stopping just short of the Aminin's face being enough to render him unconscious. Winner, Naruto Uzumaki of Kumogakure, the proctor announced, though the declaration seemed almost superfluous. As Naruto returned to the participants' balcony, he noted the reactions around him. Calculation from the Jonin, awe from most Genin, and something harder to define from the Konoha rookies, particularly Team 7. Sasuke recovered enough to participate in his own match, which he won handily against a sound ninja, watched Naruto with intense focus. The tournament bracket was established following the preliminaries. Naruto would face Neji Hyuga in the first round, a match that generated immediate buzz given the Hyuga's reputation and bloodline abilities. The month-long preparation period before the finals allowed participants to recover and refine their techniques. For Naruto, it offered something unexpected, a chance to reconnect selectively with places and people from his past. One evening, driven by nostalgia he wouldn't admit to feeling, Naruto found himself at Ichiraku Ramen. He had dismissed his armor for the occasion, dressed instead in simple civilian clothes. Though his imposing physique still drew stares, Tochi didn't recognize him at first. The malnourished boy had become a towering young man. But when Naruto ordered his old favorite, the chef's eyes widened in sudden realization. "Naruto?" he whispered, leaning across the counter. "Is it really you?" "Hello, Tucci-san," Naruto confirmed with a small smile. "It's been a while." What followed was one of the few genuinely warm moments of his return to Konoha. Tucci called Ayame from the back, and both treated him not as the fearsome juggernaut or the former demon brat, but simply as a valued customer returned after a long absence. They asked about his life in Kumo, expressed genuine happiness at his healthy appearance, and steadfastly avoided any topics that might reopen old wounds. On the house, Tochi insisted when Naruto reached for his wallet after finishing his third bowl. "Today and any day you visit." "I can pay now, Tochi-san," Naruto replied, placing money on the counter. "But thank you for the sentiment and for being kind to me before." Tochi's eyes misted slightly. "You were always welcome here, Naruto. That never changed." As Naruto left the ramen stand, he felt a presence following him, skilled but not quite skilled enough to escape his enhanced senses. "You can come out now, Kakashi-san," he called without turning around. The Jonin appeared beside him, hands in his pockets, affecting a casual demeanor. "Just making sure you're not lost. The village has changed in 7 years." "Not as much as I have," Naruto replied evenly. "Was there something you wanted?" Kakashi fell into step beside him as they walked through the evening streets. "Actually, yes. I wanted to apologize." This was unexpected enough that Naruto glanced at him directly. "For what, specifically?" "For failing you," Kakashi said simply. "I should have been there. You were my sensei's son, and I—" "What did you say?" Naruto interrupted, stopping abruptly. Kakashi's visible eye widened in realization. "You didn't know?" "My parentage was never discussed," Naruto stated, his voice carefully controlled, despite the turmoil this casual revelation had created. "Elaborate." Kakashi ran a hand through his silver hair, clearly uncomfortable. I assumed the Raikage would have told you as a political asset if nothing else. Minato Namikaze, the fourth Hokage, was your father. Kushina Uzumaki, a powerful kunoichi from the Uzumaki clan and Konoha's previous Jinchūriki, was your mother. Naruto stood perfectly still, absorbing this information. The fourth Hokage, the very man who had sealed the Kyuubi inside him, whose face watched over the village from the mountain, was his father? And his mother had been a Jinchūriki like himself? Why was this kept from me? He asked, though he suspected the answer. Protection, officially, Kakashi replied. Your father had many enemies. Unofficially, he shrugged. Politics, control, the usual reasons powerful people withhold information. Naruto processed this silently for a moment before asking, who knew? The third, certainly, the village elders. A few jonin who were close to your parents, myself included, though I was forbidden from approaching you directly. Kakashi's eye reflected genuine regret. Another of my failures. I see. Naruto's voice was deceptively calm. Thank you for this information, Kakashi-san. It's illuminating. He turned to leave, but Kakashi's voice stopped him. What will you do with it? Naruto looked back over his shoulder. Nothing immediate, but information is power, as any shinobi knows. Good evening. As he walked away, Naruto's mind raced with implications. The Raikage must have known. Kumo's intelligence was too thorough for such a significant detail to escape notice. Yet A had never mentioned it, perhaps waiting for Naruto to earn the revelation through loyalty and service. A political calculation, but one Naruto could understand. More disturbing was the realization that the third Hokage had lied to him by omission for years. All those times the old man had visited him, all those conversations about Naruto's future and potential, and never once had he mentioned who Naruto's parents were or the legacy they had left him. By the time he reached his temporary quarters, Naruto had made a decision. This information changed nothing about his present course. He was the Crimson Juggernaut of Kumogakure, brother to Killer Bee, avatar of Cyttorak. His parents, however noteworthy, belonged to a past that Konoha had denied him. His future lay elsewhere. Still, as he lay awake that night, he couldn't help wondering what Minato and Kushina would think of the man their son had become. The day of the tournament finals arrived with all the pageantry the Hidden Leaf could muster. Dignitaries from across the elemental nations filled the spectator stands, including several daimyo and, of course, the Raikage, who had traveled to Konoha specifically to witness his village's representatives compete. Naruto's match against Neji Hyuga was scheduled third, after Sasuke Uchiha faced Gaara of the Sand and Shikamaru Nara competed against Temari of the Sand. The atmosphere in the competitors' waiting area was tense with anticipation, particularly after Sasuke's match was postponed due to his unexplained absence. When Naruto's name was finally called, he stepped into the arena in full Juggernaut regalia, the sunlight gleaming off his crimson armor. Across from him, Neji Hyuga stood with the quiet confidence of a prodigy, his pale eyes evaluating Naruto's imposing form. "Begin!" the proctor called, leaping clear of the anticipated clash. Neji immediately activated his Byakugan, the veins around his eyes bulging as he engaged his Kekkei Genkai. "Your armor may protect you from physical blows," he observed, sliding into the traditional gentle fist stance. But the Byakugan sees the chakra network beneath. No defense is absolute against the Hyuga clan's techniques. Naruto made no move to attack, standing relaxed but alert. An interesting theory. Care to test it? With blinding speed, Neji closed the distance between them, his fingers precise as they targeted tenketsu points along Naruto's body. Each strike landed with perfect accuracy and accomplished nothing. The chakra-disrupting effects of the gentle fist technique simply failed to penetrate Naruto's mystical protection. Neji's eyes widened in disbelief as he leapt back, reassessing. "Impossible. I struck 37 tenketsu points precisely. The Juggernaut cannot be stopped by conventional means," Naruto explained calmly. "My chakra network is reinforced by Cyttorak's power, beyond the reach of even the Byakugan's sight." Frustration flashed across Neji's normally composed features. "Then, let's test the limits of this power." He shifted his stance, preparing for his clan's ultimate technique. "You are within my range of divination. 8 trigrams, 64 palms." What followed was a demonstration of the Hyuga clan's fearsome taijutsu at its finest, a blur of strikes targeting twice as many tenketsu points with incredible precision. Yet the result remained unchanged. Neiji's fingers, designed to disrupt the most delicate internal systems, might as well have been tapping against solid steel for all the effect they had. When the technique concluded, Neji stood panting before Naruto, who hadn't moved an inch during the entire assault. "Are you finished?" Naruto asked, not unkindly. Neji's expression hardened. "Not yet. One last technique." He began to spin, chakra erupting around him in a perfect dome. 8 trigrams palms revolving heaven. The defensive technique, meant to repel any attack, created a barrier of pure chakra between them. Naruto observed it for a moment, noting the intricate chakra patterns, before simply walking forward. His armored form passed through Neiji's ultimate defense, as if it were no more substantial than mist. The mystical properties of Cyttorak's blessing, negating the chakra constructs entirely. Neiji's shock as Naruto appeared within his defensive sphere was absolute. Before he could react, Naruto placed a single armored finger against his forehead protector, directly over the cursed seal that Naruto knew, from intelligence briefings, marked members of the Hyuga branch family. "Your technique is impressive," Naruto acknowledged. "Against almost any opponent, it would be decisive, but fate dealt you an unfortunate hand today, matching you against the one person in this tournament whose abilities perfectly counter your own." Something in his words seemed to strike a chord with Neji, whose pale eyes narrowed. "You speak of fate as if it's predetermined, as if some are born to lose while others are born to win." "Not at all," Naruto replied. 7 years ago, I was a broken child, feared and hated by this very village. My fate should have been obscurity at best, death at worst. Instead, I chose a different path." He lowered his voice so only Neji could hear. "Just as you could choose to be more than the cage your family has placed you in." Confusion and something like revelation flickered across Neji's face. Before he could respond, Naruto stepped back and addressed him at normal volume. "This match is over. You cannot harm me, and I have no desire to harm you unnecessarily. Do you yield?" For a long moment, Neji stared at him, internal conflict evident in his expression. Finally, he straightened and gave a formal bow. "I yield. Your victory is absolute, Uzumaki Naruto." The crowd's reaction was mixed. Disappointment from those who had hoped to see more action, awe from those who appreciated the technical significance of what they had witnessed. A Hyuga prodigy's ultimate techniques rendered completely ineffective. As Naruto turned to leave the arena, Neji called after him. "Uzumaki, that philosophy of yours, choosing your own path despite circumstance, does it truly work?" Naruto looked back over his shoulder. "It did for me, but the first step is the hardest, believing that change is possible at all." He left Neji standing thoughtfully in the center of the arena, making his way back to the competitors' area, where B waited with a proud grin and an offered fist bump. "Clean victory, no unnecessary force," B approved. "You've grown, not just in power, but in wisdom." Before Naruto could respond, commotion erupted in the stadium. Sasuke had finally arrived for his postponed match against Gaara, but something else was happening simultaneously. Feathers seemed to be falling from the sky, a sure sign of a wide-area genjutsu. Invasion. Naruto and B identified simultaneously, both automatically dispelling the genjutsu that was putting civilians and unprepared ninja to sleep throughout the stands. Their suspicions were confirmed moments later, as explosions rocked the village perimeter, and shinobi in sound and sand uniforms began appearing throughout the stadium. Engaging Konoha forces in combat, Naruto turned to B, awaiting guidance on their response to this unexpected development. "Raikage's standing orders for foreign conflicts," B reminded him, suddenly serious. "Protect Kumo citizens first, then assess strategic intervention points." Naruto nodded his understanding. As foreign shinobi, they weren't obligated to defend Konoha. In fact, politically, non-interference would be the safest course. But the Raikage was pragmatic enough to recognize that allowing sound and sand to potentially destabilize the balance of power wasn't in Kumo's interest either. "The Raikage is in the Kage viewing box," Naruto noted, scanning the stadium, likely already engaged with whatever threat targeted the leadership. "You head there," B decided. "I'll locate Karui and Omai, then secure our exit route if needed. Stay in communication with the standard signals. They separated, each moving with purpose through the chaos erupting around them. Naruto took the most direct route to the Kage viewing box, straight up the stadium wall, his momentum unhindered by gravity as he scaled the vertical surface in seconds. What he found at the top confirmed his worst fears. A massive purple barrier had been erected on the stadium roof, within which the third Hokage faced off against a reanimated Orochimaru. 4 sound ninja maintained the barrier from the corners, while Anbu and other Konoha Jonin unsuccessfully tried to penetrate it from outside. The Raikage stood nearby, having apparently exited the viewing box when the barrier formed. He was engaged with several high-level sound Jonin, his lightning-enhanced strength making short work of them despite their numbers. Raikage-sama, Naruto called as he approached, dispatching 2 sound ninja who attempted to intercept him with casual backhand strikes. Your orders? Finished his current opponent with a lightning-enhanced chop before acknowledging Naruto's arrival. The old monkey is on his own. Diplomatic protocol prevents direct intervention in a village leader's battle. Our priority is securing our delegation and maintaining observation of strategic developments. Naruto nodded his understanding, though he cast a concerned glance at the barrier where Hiruzen now fought against what appeared to be reanimated versions of the first and second Hokage alongside Orochimaru. Something else needs your attention, it continued, his expression grim. The one-tailed Jinchūriki has gone berserk on the far side of the village. B is already heading there. The Hachibi sensed the disturbance. You're to provide backup. Understood, Naruto replied immediately. What about Konoha's forces? They're occupied with the main invasion force, A explained. This is why we maintain good relations between Jinchūriki. Sometimes only one can handle another. Naruto needed no further encouragement. With a nod of respect to the Raikage, he turned and launched himself from the stadium roof, his momentum carrying him in a controlled arc toward the massive chakra signature now visible on the village outskirts, a towering form of sand that could only be Gaara's Biju manifestation. As he soared over the village, Naruto could see the invasion in full swing below. Sound and sand forces engaging Konoha shinobi in streets and on rooftops, civilians being evacuated to shelter areas, massive summons appearing in various districts. Despite the chaos, Konoha's defenses appeared to be holding, their forces responding with disciplined coordination to the surprise attack. Naruto landed with earth-shaking force near the developing Biju situation, immediately assessing the scene. Gaara had partially transformed, his upper body still humanoid but grotesquely enlarged and composed of sand, while his lower body had already taken the form of the massive tanuki. Before him stood Sasuke Uchiha, clearly exhausted and injured, but still defiant, alongside his teammate Sai, whose ink creations were attempting to restrain the transforming Jinchūriki with limited success. Get back, Naruto commanded as he approached, his armored form instantly drawing the attention of both Konoha Jonin and the berserk Gaara. Uzumaki! Sasuke snarled, though whether in relief or frustration was unclear. This is our fight! This is a Jinchūriki situation, Naruto corrected him firmly. Beyond your current capabilities, fall back and support the village defense elsewhere. Before Sasuke could argue further, Gaara's distorted voice roared across the clearing. Yes! Another strong one! Mother wants your blood too! Sand tendrils lashed out with incredible speed, attempting to ensnare Naruto. They shattered against his armor, the mystical protection of Cyttorak rendering them harmless. Gaara of the desert, Naruto addressed the transforming boy directly. You're losing control of your Biju. Let me help you before you do something you'll regret. Help? Gaara's partially transformed face twisted in a grotesque parody of a smile. The only help I need is more blood to prove my existence. A massive sand arm swung toward Naruto with enough force to level buildings. Naruto didn't dodge. He met the attack head-on, his armored fist connecting with the sand construct. The resulting shockwave flattened trees for hundreds of meters in all directions, sand exploding outward from the impact point. When the dust cleared, Naruto stood unharmed, while Gaara's sand arm had been completely obliterated. The sand Jinchūriki stared in disbelief, his control over the transformation momentarily wavering. Impossible, he whispered before rage overtook him again. No one is stronger than me. No one can withstand my sand. I'm not just anyone, Naruto replied calmly. I'm like you, Gaara, a Jinchūriki, but I've learned to coexist with my Biju, not be consumed by it. This revelation seemed to give Gaara pause, confusion momentarily replacing madness in his eyes. Before he could respond, Killer Bee arrived on the scene in a blur of motion, landing beside Naruto. Sand Tanuki going wild, I see, Bee observed, immediately assessing the situation. Full Hachibi transformation might be overkill, might need something more subtle, you feel me? Naruto nodded his agreement. Synchronized containment pattern? You read my mind, brother, Bee confirmed, beginning to channel the Hachibi chakra in a controlled manner. What followed was a demonstration of why Kumogakure's Jinchūriki team was feared throughout the elemental nations. Moving in perfect coordination, Naruto and Bee executed a pincer movement around the increasingly unstable Gaara. Bee used the Hachibi's chakra tails to restrict Gaara's movements from multiple angles, while Naruto employed the Crimson Bands of Cyttorak to bind the sand constructs that continuously formed and reformed around the boy. Let me go, Gaara roared, his transformation accelerating as his distress increased. I'll kill you all! Not today, Sandboy, Bee responded, maintaining his hold despite Gaara's struggles. Time to have a heart-to-heart with your tenant inside. With practiced precision, Bee placed a chakra-infused hand against Gaara's forehead, initiating a Jinchūriki synchronization technique that temporarily stabilized the connection between host and Biju. Simultaneously, Naruto strengthened the Crimson Bands, creating a containment field that prevented Shukaku's chakra from leaking further into the surrounding area. What are you doing to me? Gaara gasped, his voice momentarily his own again as the transformation began to recede. Helping you find balance, Naruto explained, maintaining the containment field. Your seal is flawed, allowing Shukaku too much influence over your mind. This is a temporary fix. A more permanent solution will require seal modifications. As the minutes passed, Gaara's transformation gradually reversed, the massive sand constructs crumbling away until only the boy remained, exhausted and confused but no longer berserk. Bee carefully monitored the chakra fluctuations, ensuring Shukaku remained dormant. Why? Gaara asked weakly as Naruto released the Crimson Bands, allowing him to slump to the ground. Why would you help me? We're enemies. We're Jinchūriki first, Naruto replied, kneeling beside the redhead. That creates a bond that transcends village affiliations. I know your pain, Gaara, the loneliness, the fear, the whispers, but it doesn't have to define you. Something vulnerable flickered in Gaara's eyes, perhaps the first genuine human connection he had experienced in years. Before he could respond, however, the situation changed again as Temari and Kankuro, Gaara's siblings, arrived on the scene, clearly intent on retrieving their brother. Back away from him, Temari demanded, her fan at the ready, despite the obvious power disparity between her and the two Kumo Jinchūriki. Bee raised his hands in a placating gesture. Easy now, sister. We just prevented your brother from going full Biju and destroying half the forest. A thank you might be in order. Kankuro, puppets deployed defensively, looked uncertainly between Gaara's subdued form and the imposing figures of Naruto and Bee. What did you do to him? Stabilized his seal temporarily, Naruto explained. But he needs rest and proper medical attention, and eventually a better sealing solution. Temari lowered her fan slightly, conflict evident in her expression. The invasion, it's failing, isn't it? From what we observed, yes, Bee confirmed. Orochimaru appears to have betrayed your village, using you as fodder for his personal vendetta against Konoha. This information seemed to confirm something the Sand siblings had already suspected. Temari and Kankuro exchanged meaningful glances before Temari made a decision. We need to get Gaara back to Suna immediately. Our father would want. Your father is likely dead, Naruto interrupted, recalling intelligence briefings about Orochimaru's movements prior to the exams. Orochimaru probably impersonated him to orchestrate this alliance between sound and sand. The shock on their faces confirmed they hadn't considered this possibility. Kankuro shook his head in denial. That's impossible. We would have known. Orochimaru is a master of disguise, Bee pointed out, and your father was conveniently absent from these exams, sending representatives instead. This revelation changed the dynamics completely. If true, Sand had been manipulated into an invasion that never served their interests, a realization that would have significant political ramifications. "Take your brother and go," Naruto advised, stepping back to give them space. "The Konoha forces will be focused on the main invasion. You should be able to escape during the confusion." "Why are you helping us?" Temari asked suspiciously. "I'm not helping Sand," Naruto clarified. "I'm helping a fellow Jinchūriki and preventing unnecessary bloodshed." Temari studied him for a moment longer before nodding decisively. She and Kankuro carefully lifted Gaara between them, supporting his weakened form. "This isn't over," Gaara murmured as they prepared to depart. "Uzumaki Naruto, we will meet again." "I count on it," Naruto replied. "Next time, perhaps as allies rather than enemies." As the Sand siblings disappeared into the forest, B turned to Naruto with a thoughtful expression. Making friends with other villages Jinchūriki now? Asama might have mixed feelings about that diplomatic initiative. "It's practical," Naruto defended. "Jinchūriki understand each other in ways others can't. Building those connections could be valuable in the future." B's expression softened into a proud smile. "Look at you, thinking long-term, seeing the bigger picture. You've come a long way from that angry kid I first trained." Before Naruto could respond, a massive chakra surge from the direction of the stadium caught their attention. A pillar of light and energy that could only mean a high-level confrontation had reached its climax. The Hokage and Orochimaru, Naruto identified, a sense of foreboding washing over him. "Let's head back," B suggested. "Whatever's happening, the Raikage will want us nearby." They made their way swiftly back toward the stadium, traversing the battle-scarred village with efficiency. The fighting had diminished significantly, the invading forces clearly losing momentum without the Biju threat and with whatever plans Orochimaru had made apparently going awry. When they arrived at the stadium, they found the purple barrier gone and the rooftop battle concluded. Anbu and Jonin were gathered around a central point, their postures communicating what words didn't need to. The third Hokage had fallen. The Raikage stood to one side, his expression grim as he watched Konoha's shinobi begin to process their loss. When he noticed Naruto and B's arrival, he beckoned them over. "Report," he commanded succinctly. "Sand Jinchūriki contained and removed from the battlefield," B summarized. "His siblings have retreated with him, likely back to Suna." A nod at his approval. "Good. The invasion is collapsing without that particular weapon. Orochimaru escaped, but not before the Hokage managed to seal his arms using some kind of sacrificial technique. The old monkey went out fighting." Naruto glanced toward where Hiruzen's body now lay, being respectfully covered by his Anbu guards. Despite their complicated history, he felt a pang of genuine regret. The third had failed him in many ways, but had also shown him small kindnesses when few others would. More importantly, he had been a symbol of stability for Konoha. His loss would create ripples throughout the shinobi world. "What happens now?" Naruto asked quietly. "Now," I replied, "the balance of power shifts. Konoha is wounded but not broken. Sand has been betrayed and used. Sound has revealed itself as a significant threat under Orochimaru's leadership." He straightened to his full impressive height, and Kumogakure demonstrates its strength and reliability by assisting an ally in crisis without overstepping diplomatic boundaries. The political calculation was clear. It had positioned Kumo perfectly during this chaos, providing enough assistance to earn goodwill without becoming entangled in Konoha's internal affairs. It was masterful statecraft. "Our role here is done," I decided. "We'll depart once the immediate crisis has passed. Konoha will need to select a new Hokage, and we should be well away before that political storm begins." As they prepared to leave the rooftop, Kakashi appeared before them, his usual casual demeanor replaced by the sharp focus of an elite jonin in crisis mode. "Raikage-sama," he acknowledged with a respectful nod. "On behalf of Konoha's command structure, I extend our gratitude for your assistance during this attack, particularly your Jinchūriki's containment of Gaara." A inclined his head slightly. Professional courtesy between allied villages, nothing more. Kakashi's visible eyes shifted to Naruto. "Particularly impressive work, Naruto. The reports say you prevented a full Biju manifestation that could have caused catastrophic damage." "It was a team effort," Naruto replied modestly, gesturing to B. Killer Bee's experience with Biju control was essential. Nevertheless, Kakashi continued, you've demonstrated qualities today that any village would value in their shinobi. Strength, certainly, but also judgment and restraint. Something in his tone suggested a deeper meaning. Perhaps a hint that Konoha might still welcome back their lost Jinchūriki under the right circumstances. Naruto chose not to acknowledge the implication. If there's nothing else, we should check on our team members, he said instead. Kakashi seemed to accept the deflection. Of course, safe travels when you depart, Raikage-sama. Killer Bee, Naruto. As they descended from the rooftop, Bee nudged Naruto gently. Sounds like Konoha's having second thoughts about letting you go. Too little, too late, Naruto replied with finality. My path is with Kumogakure now. Yet as they made their way through the village that had once been his home, Naruto couldn't help reflecting on how his return had changed things. Not just for Konoha, but for himself as well. He had come back not as the scorned orphan, but as the Crimson Juggernaut, a force to be respected and even feared. He had faced his past without being consumed by it, and perhaps most importantly, he had proven to himself that the boy who fled Konoha 7 years ago hadn't just survived, he had thrived, becoming something greater than anyone in this village could have imagined. 3 years passed following the invasion of Konoha, years that saw significant changes throughout the shinobi world. Tsunade Senju had been appointed as the 5th Hokage, bringing new leadership to the Leaf Village. Tsunagakure, after confirming Orochimaru's deception and the murder of their Kazekage, had recommitted to their alliance with Konoha. And a new threat had emerged from the shadows, an organization called Akatsuki, composed of S-rank missing nin with an apparent interest in capturing Biju and their Jinchūriki. For Naruto, now 17, these years had brought continued growth in both power and responsibility. Standing nearly 7 feet tall, his physique had matured into that of a young god, the mystical energy of Cyttorak enhancing his natural development. His control over both the Kyuubi's chakra and Cyttorak's gifts had reached unprecedented levels, allowing him to combine them in ways that even A acknowledged were beyond conventional shinobi understanding. His status within Kumogakure had evolved as well. No longer just the Crimson Juggernaut or Killer Bee's protege, he had become A's right hand for matters requiring diplomacy, backed by overwhelming force. His reputation throughout the elemental nations inspired respect, caution, and occasionally fear. The Jinchūriki who could not be stopped, the avatar of an otherworldly power, the young man who had faced Orochimaru and walked away unscathed. It was this reputation that brought him to his current mission, a diplomatic meeting in neutral territory with representatives from Konoha to discuss the growing Akatsuki threat. The rendezvous point was a small tea house in a civilian town near the border between fire and lightning countries, chosen for its obscurity and lack of shinobi presence. Naruto arrived alone, having left his distinctive armor dismissed for the occasion, dressed instead in simple but well-made clothing that did little to disguise his imposing physique. He entered the tea house precisely at the appointed time, immediately spotting the Konoha representatives at a corner table, Kakashi Hatake, and surprisingly, Jiraiya of the Sannin. Gentlemen, Naruto greeted them as he approached, his voice deeper and more resonant than in his youth. Thank you for agreeing to this meeting. Naruto, Jiraiya acknowledged, his eyes widening slightly as he took in the young man's impressive stature. Last time I saw you, you were barely tall enough to reach my waist. Now look at you. Much has changed, Naruto agreed, taking a seat across from them. The chair creaked ominously under his weight but held. But we're not here to reminisce. Direct as always, Kakashi noted with what might have been approval. You're right, of course. Akatsuki's movements have accelerated in recent months. Jiraiya leaned forward, his usual jovial demeanor replaced by the seriousness of a spy master. They've already captured 2 Jinchūriki, the 5 tails from Iwa and the 7 tails from Taki. Our intelligence suggests they're proceeding in a specific order, though we haven't determined the pattern yet. Kumogakure has noted similar movements, Naruto confirmed. They made an attempt on Killer Bee 4 months ago. 2 Akatsuki members, Hidan and Kakuzu. The attempt failed. His expression darkened, permanently in Hidan's case. This information seemed to surprise the Konoha shinobi. You managed to kill Hidan? Jiraiya asked incredulously. Our intelligence suggested he was functionally immortal due to some kind of religious jutsu. Immortality is relative, Naruto replied simply. Cyttorak's power negates many supernatural abilities, including whatever ritual kept Hidan functioning despite fatal injuries. As for his remains, a cold smile crossed his features. Let's just say they're scattered across multiple dimensions now. Kakashi and Jiraiya exchanged glances, clearly processing the implications of this capability. It was Kakashi who steered the conversation back to its purpose. Whilst the Raikage has proposed a joint defensive strategy regarding Akatsuki, we're here to discuss Konoha's position on that proposal. Naruto nodded. Specifically, we're suggesting a rotation system for Jinchūriki protection. No village can spare the resources to guard their Jinchūriki continuously without compromising other missions, but by coordinating our efforts, we can ensure that no Jinchūriki is left vulnerable. It's a sound strategy, Jiraiya acknowledged. Tsunade is generally supportive, with some caveats regarding command structure and intelligence sharing. Understandable concerns, Naruto agreed. The Raikage has authorized me to negotiate those details directly. What followed was a detailed discussion of the proposed alliance, which villages would participate, how forces would be allocated, what intelligence would be shared, and what would remain proprietary. Throughout the conversation, Naruto demonstrated a diplomatic acumen that might have surprised those who knew him only as a weapon of war. His suggestions pragmatic and fair-minded while still protecting Kumo's interests. As they concluded the formal portion of the meeting, Jiraiya cleared his throat, his expression turning more personal. Before we wrap up, there's something else I'd like to discuss with you, Naruto. Something about your parents. Naruto's expression remained neutral, though his interest was piqued. I'm aware of their identities now. Kakashi informed me during the Chunin exams years ago. Yes, but there's more you should know, Jiraiya continued. As Minato's teacher and your godfather, I have access to certain legacies they left for you. Godfather? Naruto repeated, the word hanging in the air between them. Jiraiya had the grace to look uncomfortable. Yes, a role I failed in spectacularly, I admit. There were complications after the Kyuubi attack, political pressures. By the time I realized how badly the village was treating you, you had already left for Kumo. Naruto studied the older man, finding no deception in his expression, only genuine regret. What legacies are you referring to? Several things, Jiraiya replied. Scrolls containing your father's techniques, including the Rasengan and his work on the Flying Thunder God. Your mother's sealing knowledge. The Uzumaki were masters of Fuinjutsu. And financial assets. Both your parents left considerable wealth that's been held in trust. The revelation was unexpected. Naruto had made peace with his parentage years ago, accepting that knowledge of his lineage was the only inheritance he would ever receive. The idea that tangible legacies existed, techniques, knowledge, even wealth, opened possibilities he hadn't considered. Why tell me this now? He asked, his tone carefully controlled. Because you're of age, Jiraiya answered simply. Because regardless of which village you call home, these things belong to you by right. And because, he hesitated, because I owe it to Minato and Kushina to ensure their son receives what they intended for him, even if circumstances didn't unfold as any of us expected. Naruto was silent for a long moment, weighing his options. Finally, he nodded once. I appreciate the information, Jiraiya-sama. I'll need to discuss this with the Raikage before making any decisions about accepting these legacies. Of course, Jiraiya agreed, though disappointment flickered briefly across his features. The offer remains open, regardless of timing. As they prepared to conclude the meeting, Kakashi spoke up with what seemed like casual interest. Your team from the Chunin exam still asks about you occasionally, especially after your exploits make it into the bingo book updates. Sasuke and Sakura? Naruto asked, genuine curiosity in his tone. And Sai, Kakashi confirmed. They've grown into quite capable shinobi. Sasuke eventually activated his Mangekyo Sharingan during a confrontation with his brother, who, interestingly enough, is a member of Akatsuki now. I'm aware of Itachi Uchiha's affiliation, Naruto acknowledged. Kumo's intelligence is quite thorough. Then you might also be aware that Sasuke has expressed interest in facing you again, Kakashi continued. not out of hostility, but as a measure of his own growth. Naruto allowed himself a small smile. Some rivalries transcend village boundaries, it seems. Perhaps one day when circumstances allow. With that, they concluded their meeting, parting with formal respect and the understanding that their villages were moving toward closer cooperation in the face of a common threat. As Naruto departed the tea house, he found himself reflecting on how his relationship with Konoha had evolved, from hatred to indifference to this professional respect that now characterized their interactions. He had no regrets about the path he had chosen. Kumogakure had given him what Konoha never had: acceptance, family in the form of Killer Bee and others, purpose that extended beyond being a weapon or a sacrifice. Yet there was something satisfying about returning to his former village, not as a supplicant seeking acknowledgement, but as an equal, even a superior, whose power and position commanded respect. The legacies Jiraiya had mentioned intrigued him. The Raikage would likely see strategic value in Naruto, gaining access to his father's techniques and his mother's sealing knowledge. The financial assets were less important. Naruto's service to Kumo had made him wealthy by any reasonable standard, but they represented a connection to his parents that transcended mere biology. As he made his way back toward Lightning Country, Naruto decided he would accept these legacies when the time was right. Not out of sentimentality, but because they represented tools and knowledge that could make him even more effective in his role as Kumogakure's Crimson Juggernaut. And in a world where threats like Akatsuki were emerging from the shadows, every advantage mattered. The joint operation against Akatsuki unfolded over the following months. A coordinated effort between Kumogakure, Konohagakure, and eventually Tsunagakure, whose new Kazekage, Gaara, in a remarkable turnaround from his previous instability, recognized the threat to all Jinchūriki, himself included. Naruto found himself working alongside shinobi from villages that had once been adversaries, including, on occasion, members of what would have been his Genin team in another life. Sasuke Uchiha, now a Jonin with full mastery of his Sharingan, initially approached these joint missions with thinly veiled competitive hostility. Over time, however, as they faced common enemies and protected each other's lives, a grudging mutual respect developed between them. "You're not what I expected," Sasuke commented during one mission, as they made camp after successfully eliminating an Akatsuki supporter cell. "The stories about the Juggernaut make you sound like a mindless berserker." Naruto, sitting across the campfire in his full crimson regalia, helmet removed for comfort, raised an eyebrow. "Disappointed?" "No," Sasuke admitted after a moment's consideration. "Just reevaluating. The power you have, it's unlike anything in the shinobi world, yet you use it with precision, restraint even." "Power without control is just destruction," Naruto replied, echoing Killer Bee's early lessons. Cyttorak's gift could level mountains, but that rarely accomplishes the actual objective. Sasuke studied him thoughtfully. "You know, in another life we might have been rivals, teammates." "We were assigned to the same team originally," Naruto confirmed, surprising Sasuke with this revelation. "Before I left Konoha." "I didn't know that." Sasuke fell silent for a moment. "Would you ever consider returning? To Konoha, I mean." The question was unexpected, especially coming from Sasuke, who had never struck Naruto as particularly sentimental about village affiliations. Naruto considered his response carefully. "My loyalty is to Kumogakure," he finally answered. "They took in a broken child and helped forge him into something stronger. Killer Bee, the Raikage, they're my family now in all the ways that matter." Sasuke nodded, seeming to understand. "Bonds that transcend blood. I can respect that." The conversation shifted to tactical matters after that, but something had changed in their dynamic, a mutual understanding that, despite the different paths they had taken, they shared certain fundamental values about strength, loyalty, and purpose. Similar evolutions occurred in Naruto's relationships with other Konoha shinobi as the joint operations continued. Sakura Haruno, now a formidable medical ninja trained by Tsunade herself, initially approached him with scientific curiosity about his transformation and abilities. Over time, this professional interest developed into genuine camaraderie, particularly after Naruto used his invulnerability to shield her from an explosion during a confrontation with Deidara, an Akatsuki explosive specialist. Even Sai, the enigmatic replacement who had taken Naruto's spot on Team 7, found common ground with him through their shared experiences as weapons transformed into something more human through bonds with others. These developing relationships, however, remained professional in nature. Naruto never forgot that his true loyalties lay with Kumogakure, just as these Konoha shinobi remained dedicated to their village. It was a balance, cooperation without compromise, respect without relocation. The alliance proved its worth when intelligence indicated that Akatsuki's leader, a figure known only as Pain, was planning a major offensive against Konoha to capture the Nine-Tails Jinchūriki, apparently unaware that said Jinchūriki had long since relocated to Kumogakure. It's a unique opportunity, pointed out during the strategy session in Kumo's war room. Pain believes the Nine-Tails is still in Konoha. We can use this misconception to set a trap. With me as bait, Naruto surmised, his expression thoughtful rather than concerned. After years of missions and battles, the prospect of facing even an S-rank threat like Pain held little fear for the Crimson Juggernaut. Not alone, B interjected firmly. Pain has multiple bodies, each with different abilities according to our intelligence. Even the Juggernaut might be overwhelmed by simultaneous attacks from different vectors. Agreed, I nodded. This will be a coordinated operation. Naruto, B, and a select team from Kumo will travel to Konoha under the guise of a diplomatic mission. When Pain attacks, you'll spring the trap in conjunction with Konoha's forces. The plan was elegant in its simplicity. Pain would expect to find a vulnerable Jinchūriki, perhaps protected by standard Konoha security measures. Instead, he would face not one but two fully trained Jinchūriki, one of whom was also the avatar of Cyttorak, backed by elite forces from two of the strongest hidden villages. As they prepared for departure, B found Naruto on their usual training ground, methodically testing the limits of his strength against specially reinforced training equipment. Big mission ahead. Feeling any dread? B asked in his characteristic rhyme. Naruto set down the massive weight he had been lifting, turning to face his mentor and brother. Not dread, just contemplation. This will be the largest operation I've participated in since joining Kumo, and it centers around protecting Konoha. Having second thoughts about helping your old village? B inquired, his tone serious despite the rhythmic delivery. No, Naruto shook his head decisively. It's the right strategic move. Akatsuki threatens all Jinchūriki, all villages ultimately. Better to confront Pain on our terms than wait for him to target Kumo directly. B studied him for a moment. That's the logical answer. But what's in your heart, not just your head? Naruto was silent for a long moment, considering the question. Closure, perhaps, he finally admitted. Protecting the village that once failed to protect me. There's a symmetry to it that feels appropriate. Not revenge, not vindication exactly, but completion of a circle, B suggested. The scared boy returns as the man who saves them all. Something like that, Naruto acknowledged with a small smile. Though I have no illusions about doing it alone. This is a team effort. B clapped him on the shoulder, or one of the few people who could do so without being dwarfed by Naruto's imposing frame. Team that includes your Konoha friends, more and more with each mission, it seems. Colleagues, Naruto corrected, though without heat. Professional respect isn't the same as friendship. If you say so, B replied with a knowing smile. Just remember, village boundaries don't have to be heart boundaries. A shinobi can be loyal to his village while still forming bonds beyond it. Naruto considered this wisdom as they completed their preparations. Perhaps B was right. Perhaps the lines between villages, between past and present, weren't as rigid as he had once believed. The joint operations against Akatsuki had already demonstrated that traditional rivalries could be set aside in the face of common threats. As they departed for Konoha the following day, Naruto found himself looking forward not just to the tactical challenge that Pain would present, but also to working alongside the shinobi who, in another life, might have been his comrades from the beginning. Not out of sentimentality or regret for what might have been, but with the confident pragmatism of a warrior who recognized the value of capable allies, regardless of their village affiliation. The Crimson Juggernaut of Kumogakure was going to war alongside Konoha, and anyone who stood in their way, Pain, Akatsuki, or any other threat, would learn why the combined might of the hidden villages was not to be underestimated. Pain's attack on Konoha began at dawn. 6 massive summoning creatures, appearing simultaneously at different points around the village perimeter. Each was controlled by one of Pain's bodies. The 6 paths, as intelligence had identified them, each with unique abilities that complemented the others. But unlike Pain's expectations of finding a vulnerable village, he instead encountered a prepared defense force, strategically positioned based on advanced intelligence. Naruto and Killer Bee, stationed at the Hokage Tower with Tsunade and her Anbu guards, felt the attack begin and moved immediately to their assigned positions. "Remember the plan," Tsunade reminded them as they prepared to engage. Each path has specific abilities. The priority is to separate them and eliminate them individually rather than facing their combined power. Naruto nodded, the crimson armor of the Juggernaut materializing around him as he prepared for battle. "I'll take the Deva path, the one with gravitational abilities. My momentum can counter his repulsion techniques." "I've got the Preta path," B confirmed, already channeling the Hachibi's chakra. The chakra absorber won't find much joy trying to drain a perfect Jinchūriki. They moved out, joining the coordinated defense that was already engaging the invading forces. Throughout the village, elite shinobi from both Konoha and Kumo executed pre-planned countermeasures against the paths of pain, using their advanced knowledge to neutralize the element of surprise that had made pain so effective in previous encounters. Naruto found his target, the Deva path, the body that appeared to be Pain's primary form, directing the assault from a vantage point atop a damaged building. With the Deva path was a blue-haired woman that intelligence had identified as Konan, Pain's partner and the only other publicly known member of Akatsuki's inner circle. Uzumaki Naruto, the Deva path intoned as Naruto approached, its ringed eyes fixing on him with cold intensity. "The Nine Tails Jinchūriki, you've saved us the trouble of searching for you." "Pain," Naruto acknowledged, coming to a stop a measured distance away. "Or should I call you Nagato? That's your real name, isn't it?" The man controlling these corpse puppets from a distance. A flicker of surprise crossed the Deva path's normally impassive features. "Your intelligence is better than anticipated, but knowledge alone won't save you or this village." "This isn't about saving anyone," Naruto replied calmly. "It's about ending your threat to the Jinchūriki, to the balance of power among the nations." "Balance?" Pain echoed, genuine emotion, something like righteous anger, coloring his tone. "The current system is built on suffering, on endless cycles of hatred and vengeance. I seek true peace through pain, through a power so terrible that war itself becomes unthinkable." "A noble goal," Naruto acknowledged, with flawed methodology. Without further preamble, Pain extended his hand. "Shinra Tensei." The gravitational repulsion wave that erupted from Pain's palm would have flattened an ordinary opponent, sending them crashing through multiple buildings. Instead, it washed over Naruto's armored form with minimal effect, pushing him back only a few inches. "Impossible," Konan murmured, speaking for the first time. "The Deva path's power cannot stop the Juggernaut," Naruto finished for her. Then, with deliberate purpose, he began to walk forward. Pain intensified his gravitational assault, the air around them distorting with the force being applied. Buildings creaked, debris floated upward, yet Naruto continued his inexorable advance, each step leaving cracks in the rooftop beneath him. "What manner of power is this?" Pain demanded, genuine confusion in his voice. "No Jinchūriki ability can withstand the Renegade's force." "I am more than a Jinchūriki," Naruto replied, now close enough that Pain was forced to leap backward to maintain distance. "I am the Crimson Juggernaut, avatar of Cyttorak, and your gravitational techniques, impressive as they are, cannot overcome my momentum once established." Pain's tactical mind reassessed the situation rapidly. "Bansho Tenin," he intoned, reversing the gravitational effect to pull rather than push. This actually accelerated Naruto's advance, turning his measured walk into an unstoppable charge. His armored form crashed into Pain with devastating force, sending the Deva path flying backward through several structures before it managed to right itself, landing on a distant rooftop with visible damage to its form. Throughout the village, similar confrontations were unfolding as the coordinated defense isolated and engaged each path. B had successfully engaged the Preta path, his perfect control over the Hachibi's chakra, allowing him to overload the path's absorption ability with more power than it could process. Sasuke Uchiha and Kakashi Hatake had cornered the Asura path, their lightning techniques particularly effective against its mechanized components. Sakura and Tsunade together were handling the animal path, their monstrous strength counteracting its summoning abilities. Naruto pressed his advantage, launching himself toward the damaged Diva path with unstoppable momentum. Pain attempted to evade, but Naruto had studied his movement patterns from intelligence reports, anticipating his defensive maneuvers. A massive armored hand closed around the Deva path's throat, lifting it off the ground. "Your bodies are just puppets," Naruto observed, tightening his grip. "Destroying them won't kill you, Nagato, but it will end this particular assault." "You understand nothing," Pain replied, his voice undiminished despite his precarious position. "This pain, this cycle of hatred, it must be broken, and only through shared suffering can true understanding emerge." "There are other paths to understanding," Naruto countered, "other ways to break cycles of violence." Before Pain could respond, Naruto's free hand shot out, catching Konan as she attempted to intervene with a paper jutsu attack. The papers shredded harmlessly against his armor, unable to penetrate the mystical protection of Cyttorak. With both Pain and Konan temporarily neutralized, Naruto activated his communication seal, checking the status of the other engagements throughout the village. The reports were promising. 3 of the 6 paths had already been destroyed, with the remaining 2 cornered and on the defensive. "Your invasion has failed, Nagato," Naruto informed the Deva path. "Your other bodies are being systematically eliminated. Whatever you hope to accomplish here today won't happen." For the first time, uncertainty flickered across Pain's features. "How? How did you anticipate our attack so precisely?" "Because we understand your goal," Naruto replied. "The collection of all Biju, the creation of a weapon to enforce your vision of peace. We simply disagreed with your methods enough to stop you." A massive explosion from the village center interrupted their conversation. The human path, cornered by Konoha forces, had apparently self-destructed rather than be captured. The distraction was minimal but sufficient for Pain to execute a desperate countermeasure. "Chibaku Tensei," he intoned, focusing his remaining chakra into a gravitational technique of unprecedented scale. The effect was immediate and catastrophic. A small black sphere materialized above the village, its gravitational pull so intense that buildings, debris, and Earth itself began to rise toward it, forming the beginning of a massive satellite that would engulf everything in its path, including Naruto, who found himself being lifted along with the very rooftop he stood upon. This technique, unlike the directed gravitational forces Pain had used earlier, affected everything within its radius equally. Even Naruto's momentum-based abilities were temporarily neutralized as the reference frame itself was altered by the technique. But Pain had miscalculated in one critical aspect. Naruto was not limited to physical resistance. As the gravitational prison began to form around him, he called upon one of Cyttorak's most potent gifts. "Crimson Cosmos of Cyttorak," he intoned, crimson energy erupting from his form in a counterwave to Pain's technique. What followed was a clash of fundamental forces. Pain's Rinnegan-based manipulation of gravity versus Cyttorak's interdimensional, mystical energy. The struggle was brief but intense, the air itself seeming to warp and distort around the conflicting powers. Then, with a sound like reality tearing, Naruto's crimson energy overwhelmed Pain's technique, shattering the forming Chibaku Tensei and releasing its accumulated mass to rain back down across the village. Naruto directed the descent as best he could, using the crimson bands to catch the largest debris before it could cause civilian casualties. When the chaos subsided, he stood atop a partially collapsed building, the Deva path and Konan still restrained in his grasp, though both showed signs of severe chakra depletion from the failed Chibaku Tensei. "It's over," Naruto stated, not with triumph, but with finality. "Your other bodies have been destroyed. Your ultimate technique has failed. Surrender, Nagato, and perhaps something can be salvaged from this conflict." The Deva path stared at him with those ringed eyes, searching for something in Naruto's expression. "You speak of salvage, of understanding, yet you serve a village, a system, that perpetuates the very cycles of violence I seek to end. I serve Kumogakure, Naruto acknowledged. But I also recognize that your goal, true peace, isn't achieved through force or fear. The Biju aren't weapons to be collected and wielded. They're conscious entities with their own rights to existence. For a long moment, Pain was silent, seemingly communing with the real Nagato somewhere distant. When he spoke again, his tone had shifted subtly. Perhaps there is wisdom in your words. A different approach might be considered. Before Naruto could respond, B appeared beside him, his expression grim. We've got a problem, bigger than these two, no joke. The real Nagato and his control center have been located, but there's something else there. Something masked by all this chaos. What is it? Naruto asked, maintaining his hold on Pain and Konan. Black Zetsu, B replied, the name immediately setting off warning bells in Naruto's mind. Akatsuki's spy master. He's at Nagato's location, apparently trying to take control of the Rinnegan itself. This revelation changed the strategic calculus entirely. Black Zetsu had been identified in intelligence briefings as one of Akatsuki's most enigmatic members, with abilities and motivations that remained largely unknown. We need to move, Naruto decided immediately. The Rinnegan in unknown hands could be an even greater threat than Pain's original plan. Pain's expression shifted to one of alarm. Betrayal within Akatsuki. It seems your organization has fractures of its own, Naruto observed. Will you cooperate now? Help us stop this Zetsu from claiming your eyes? A silent communication seemed to pass between Pain and Konan before Pain nodded once. The location is 5 kilometers north of the village, concealed within the hollow of a giant tree. Konan can guide you. Naruto released them both, his decision immediate. B, inform Tsunade and the command structure. I'll move ahead with Konan. Speed is essential. You trust her to lead you true? B questioned, though without challenging Naruto's judgment. I trust her loyalty to Nagato, Naruto clarified. And right now our interests align perfectly. With that settled, Naruto and Konan departed immediately, moving at maximum speed through the forest north of Konoha. Konan, despite her earlier hostility, seemed genuinely concerned for Nagato's safety, her paper techniques, allowing her to keep pace with Naruto's enhanced movement. How long has Nagato had the Rinnegan? Naruto asked as they traveled, gathering intelligence that might prove useful. Since childhood, Konan replied after a moment's hesitation. They were a gift of sorts, from someone who recognized their potential in him. A gift? Naruto pressed. The Rinnegan isn't a Kekkei Genkai Nagato was born with? Konan's expression turned guarded. That information is not relevant to our current situation. Naruto didn't press further, focusing instead on the approach to their destination. As they neared the coordinates Pain had provided, Naruto extended his senses, enhanced by both Cyttorak's power and the Kyuubi's chakra. Something's wrong, he murmured, slowing their pace. There's a presence ahead, multiple presences. But they feel wrong, like shadows of chakra rather than full signatures. Konan's expression tightened. White Zetsu clones, perhaps. Black Zetsu can create and control them to some extent. They proceeded with greater caution, eventually identifying the massive hollow tree that served as Nagato's control center. The entrance was unguarded, suspiciously so. Wait here, Naruto instructed, his crimson armor materializing fully around him. If this is a trap, better I trigger it alone. Nato is my responsibility, Konan objected. I won't. Your paper techniques are vulnerable to surprise attacks, Naruto interrupted firmly. My armor isn't. Logic, not heroics, Konan. After a moment's internal struggle, she nodded reluctantly. Be careful. Black Zetsu is unnatural, even by Akatsuki standards. Naruto approached the entrance cautiously, senses alert for any sign of ambush. The interior of the hollow tree was dimly lit by a few scattered lanterns, illuminating a complex array of mechanical apparatus connected to a terribly emaciated figure seated at the center. Nagato in his true form, skeletal thin with vibrant red hair, multiple black receivers protruding from his back, and standing before him, one hand already extended toward Nagato's face, was a humanoid figure composed entirely of what appeared to be living shadow. Black Zetsu, Naruto identified, his voice echoing in the chamber. Step away from him. The shadow figure turned, its featureless face somehow conveying surprise despite the lack of distinguishable expressions. The Nine-Tails Jinchūriki, it observed, its voice an unsettling whisper. Unexpected, but not entirely unwelcome. 2 prizes instead of 1. Nagato, barely conscious, stirred slightly at the sound of voices. Naruto Uzumaki? He rasped, his voice far weaker than the confident tones his pain bodies had projected. I'm here to prevent your Rinnegan from falling into unauthorized hands, Naruto explained succinctly, keeping his focus on Black Zetsu. Your invasion has failed, but we can still prevent worse outcomes. Black Zetsu seemed to assess the situation, its shadowy form shifting slightly. The Juggernaut of Kumogakure. Your reputation precedes you, but you understand nothing of what's truly at stake here. Enlighten me, Naruto suggested, taking a measured step forward, before I remove you forcibly from Nagato's presence. The Rinnegan is but one piece of a much larger puzzle, Black Zetsu replied, its tone almost educational. A puzzle that began long before humans walked these lands, before the hidden villages, before even the Sage of 6 Paths. You're stalling, Naruto observed, taking another step. Whatever your game is, it ends now. Black Zetsu's form suddenly expanded, tendrils of shadow lashing out toward both Naruto and the weakened Nagato. You have no concept of the true game, Juggernaut. The collection of Bijou, Akatsuki's stated goal. These are merely preludes to something far greater. Naruto didn't bother with words now. The crimson bands of Cyttorak erupted from his outstretched hands, intercepting Black Zetsu's shadow tendrils before they could reach Nagato. The mystical energy seared through the shadow substance, causing Black Zetsu to recoil with a hiss of genuine pain. Interesting, the shadow being commented, regrouping its form. Your power, it's not of this world, is it? Not chakra, not natural energy, but something else entirely. Cyttorak's domain extends beyond dimensions, Naruto confirmed, pressing his advantage by advancing steadily. Whatever you are, you're not beyond his reach. For the first time, Black Zetsu showed signs of genuine concern, its shadowy form condensing as if preparing to flee. This changes calculations. Mother will need to be informed. Mother? Naruto questioned, the reference unexpected, but Black Zetsu provided no further explanation. Instead, it seemed to melt into the ground itself, its form dissipating despite Naruto's attempt to contain it with the crimson bands. Within seconds, it had disappeared completely, leaving only Nagato and his life support apparatus in the chamber. Konan rushed in moments later, having evidently sensed the confrontation. Nagato! She cried, moving immediately to his side. Are you harmed? Did it take? My eyes are intact, Nagato assured her weakly, thanks to unexpected intervention. His gaze shifted to Naruto, studying him with the legendary Rinnegan, concentric purple rings that seemed to see beyond ordinary vision. You protected me. Why? Strategic necessity, Naruto replied honestly. Black Zetsu with the Rinnegan would be a greater threat than Pain with the same. A weak smile touched Nagato's lips. Pragmatic, but there was more in your actions than mere strategy. I sensed it through our connection. Before Naruto could respond, B arrived with reinforcements, a mixed team of Konoha and Kumo shinobi, including Kakashi and Sasuke. They secured the perimeter while medics assessed Nagato's condition. Black Zetsu escaped, Naruto reported succinctly. But the Rinnegan is secure, and so is its current owner. The question becomes what to do with him now, Kakashi observed, eyeing Nagato with undisguised caution. He orchestrated an attack on Konoha that caused significant damage, even if casualties were minimized by our advanced preparations. Nagato, despite his weakened state, met Kakashi's gaze directly. I accept responsibility for my actions, but before judgment is passed, there are things you should know about Akatsuki's true purpose and the entity behind Black Zetsu. Entity? B questioned sharply. Black Zetsu referred to a mother before fleeing. Naruto informed them. Implied that Akatsuki's stated goals were merely preparation for something larger. This information created a ripple of concern among the gathered shinobi. Nagato, with Konan's assistance, managed to sit more upright in his mechanical chair. The plan was never truly mine, he admitted, his voice gaining strength as he spoke. I believed in peace through pain, through understanding born of shared suffering. But the methodology, the collection of Bijou, the creation of a 10 tails, that came from Madara Uchiha, or someone claiming to be him. Sasuke stiffened at the mention of his clan's infant ancestor. Madara has been dead for decades. So I believed as well, Nagato agreed. Yet someone wearing his identity guided the formation of Akatsuki from the shadows, and Black Zetsu always seemed to serve this Madara while pursuing its own agenda simultaneously. The strategic implications were enormous. If Akatsuki had been a front for some larger scheme, if even Pain himself had been manipulated by greater forces, then the threat landscape was far more complex than previously understood. We need to get this information back to the village, Kakashi decided. Both villages' leadership need to hear this directly. Can you travel? Naruto asked Nagato directly. The emaciated man considered his condition. With assistance in my apparatus, yes, and I am willing to do so to share what I know. Perhaps this is the true path to understanding that I sought for so long. As they prepared to transport Nagato back to Konoha, Naruto found himself reflecting on the unexpected turn of events. What had begun as a defensive operation against a known threat had revealed layers of complexity that no intelligence had anticipated. Black Zetsu, the mysterious mother it served, the possibility of Madara Uchiha's continued influence. Each revelation suggested a conspiracy spanning generations, perhaps centuries. And at the center of it all, somehow, were the Biju, the tailed beasts whose power had shaped the shinobi world's history, and whose Jinchūriki, like Naruto himself, seemed destined to play pivotal roles in whatever conflict was truly unfolding. The Crimson Juggernaut of Kumogakure had faced many challenges since discovering Cyttorak's gem in that hidden cave years ago. But as he helped secure Nagato for transport back to Konoha, Naruto couldn't shake the feeling that all those challenges had been mere preludes to the true test that now approached. A test that would require not just his strength as the Juggernaut, but all the bonds he had formed, all the wisdom he had gained, all the paths he had chosen since fleeing Konoha as a broken child seeking escape from hatred. Whatever came next, he would face it not alone, but as part of something larger, a unity of purpose that transcended village boundaries and old grievances, focused on a threat that endangered not just individual nations, but the world itself. The revelation of Black Zetsu's existence and the possibility of manipulation behind Akatsuki's formation changed everything. In the weeks following Pain's failed invasion of Konoha, an unprecedented summit was convened, bringing together the 5 Kage and their advisors to address this newly understood threat. Held in neutral Iron Country, the summit represented the first time in generations that all 5 major hidden villages had gathered peacefully to discuss common interests. Security was handled by the samurai of Iron Country, supplemented by elite guards from each village, including Naruto, who stood behind the Raikage's chair as both bodyguard and subject matter expert on the Zetsu encounter. The intelligence provided by Nagato of the former Akatsuki organization suggests a conspiracy of alarming scope. Tsunade, the 5th Hokage, addressed the gathered leaders. A plot spanning decades, possibly longer, with the ultimate goal of collecting all Biju to recreate some form of the legendary 10 Tails. And we're supposed to simply accept the word of a criminal who attacked Konoha? The Tsuchikage, Onoki, questioned skeptically. Convenient that he had this change of heart after his defeat. His information has been independently verified where possible, countered firmly, and his willingness to surrender the Rinnegan for safekeeping demonstrates good faith. This last point had been particularly contentious. After extensive negotiation, Nagato had agreed to have his Rinnegan sealed in a special containment scroll, jointly held by Konoha and Kumo as neutral parties until a permanent solution could be determined. The eyes themselves remained viable but inaccessible to any single village, removing them as an immediate factor in the power balance. The air in the Iron Country meeting hall crackled with tension as the 5 Kage faced each other across the ancient stone table. Naruto stood vigilant behind the Raikage's chair, his crimson armor gleaming under the torchlight, an unmistakable symbol of power that drew wary glances from the other village's guards. The threat of Black Zetsu and whatever force controls it goes beyond village rivalries. Continued, his powerful voice filling the chamber. This mother it referenced suggests an entity of significant power, possibly connected to the origin of the Biju themselves. Theoretical threats don't concern me, the Mizukage Meiterumi interjected. Kirigakure faces real dangers daily. What concrete evidence do we have beyond the word of a defeated terrorist? Naruto stepped forward slightly, catching the Raikage's subtle nod of permission to speak. I faced Black Zetsu directly. Its abilities defied conventional chakra patterns. More importantly, it retreated from my Cyttorak-based techniques that have neutralized every other chakra-based power I've encountered. And we're supposed to trust the word of the Nine-Tails Jinchūriki? Onoki scoffed. A weapon who abandoned his birth village for Kumo's embrace? The temperature in the room seemed to drop several degrees as Naruto's gaze locked with the Tsuchikage's. My loyalty to Kumogakure is absolute, but my observations are factual. Black Zetsu spoke of plans spanning centuries, of the Biju collection being merely prelude. Its retreat wasn't tactical, it was genuinely surprised by power it couldn't counter. Gaara, the Kazekage and youngest leader present, had remained silent until now. I believe him, he stated simply. As a fellow Jinchūriki who has faced Akatsuki directly, I recognize the pattern. Each member believed they served one purpose while actually advancing another. The Tsuchikage's skepticism wavered slightly in the face of this unified front. Tsunade seized the opening. We propose a joint task force, she announced. Elite shinobi from each village, focused solely on locating Black Zetsu and uncovering its true purpose. Sharing intelligence, coordinating defense of remaining Jinchūriki, and preparing for whatever larger threat may emerge. And who would lead this unprecedented alliance? Onoki challenged. Which village receives command authority? A slight smile touched A's lips. Not a village, a person with unique qualifications. He gestured toward Naruto. The Crimson Juggernaut has already demonstrated immunity to Black Zetsu's techniques. As both a Jinchūriki and the avatar of Cyttorak, he bridges the conventional shinobi world and whatever mystical forces we now face. The suggestion sent ripples of surprise through the gathered leaders and their guards. Onoki began an immediate objection, but Gaara raised his hand for silence. I support this nomination, the Kazekage declared. My life was saved by Naruto's intervention years ago during the failed invasion. His power is unquestionable, and more importantly, his judgment has proven sound even in the most chaotic circumstances. Mei studied Naruto thoughtfully. The Crimson Juggernaut's reputation has reached even the isolated corners of water country. They say you cannot be stopped once in motion, that no technique can penetrate your defense. Is this accurate? It is, Naruto confirmed without boasting. The simple declaration, delivered with absolute certainty, carried more weight than any demonstration. And your loyalty? She pressed. Would you place the mission above Kumogakure's interests if necessary? My loyalty to Kumo is unbreakable, Naruto replied. But the threat Black Zetsu represents endangers all villages equally. The Raikage understands this, which is why he proposed my nomination. A tense silence fell as the Kaji considered the unprecedented proposal. Finally, Tsunade broke it. I have known Naruto since he was a child, she said. I have witnessed his transformation from a scorned orphan to the warrior who stands before us. If anyone can transcend village politics to address this threat, it's him. The discussion continued for hours, debate growing heated at times as centuries of inter-village mistrust and competition surfaced. Eventually, a compromise emerged. Naruto would command the field operations of the joint task force, while a council comprising representatives from each village would oversee strategic decisions. As the summit concluded with the signing of the formal alliance agreement, Naruto stood on a balcony overlooking the snow-covered mountains of Iron Country. Killer Bee joined him, his expression uncharacteristically serious. Big responsibility they've handed you, fool, Bee observed, dropping his usual rhyming pattern. Leading shinobi from villages that would normally be at each other's throats. It's pragmatic, Naruto replied. My power makes me the logical choice. No one else could neutralize Black Zetsu if we encounter it again. Bee studied his brother-in-arms carefully. That's the rational explanation. But I see something else in your eyes, something you might not even recognize yourself. Naruto raised an eyebrow questioningly. Purpose, Bee explained. Beyond Kumogakure, beyond even our brotherhood. The boy who fled Konoha wanted safety. The man who became the Juggernaut wanted strength. But the leader standing before me now, you're starting to see a larger destiny. Naruto considered this insight, his gaze returning to the distant mountains. Perhaps, he acknowledged, Cyttorak's power has always demanded worthy application. Protecting Kumo satisfied that requirement for years. But this threat, it feels connected to the very fabric of the shinobi world. And to you personally, B added, the nine tails inside you is part of whatever puzzle Black Zetsu is trying to complete. A messenger approached, bowing respectfully. Juggernaut-sama, the Kaji Council requests your presence to discuss initial task force deployments. Naruto nodded, squaring his massive shoulders as his armor materialized around him. Time to begin the hunt. The Joint Task Force headquarters, established in neutral territory, became a hub of unprecedented cooperation. Elite shinobi from each village, selected for both skill and adaptability, found themselves working alongside former enemies toward a common goal. Naruto's leadership style surprised many who knew him only by reputation. The unstoppable force of battle became a thoughtful, measured commander who listened to input from all sources before making decisions. His strategy focused on three concurrent objectives: gathering intelligence on Black Zetsu's movements, protecting the remaining Jinchūriki, and researching the historical connections between the Biju, the Sage of Six Paths, and whatever mother entity might exist. 2 months into operations, the first significant breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Sasuke Uchiha, representing Konoha on the task force, returned from investigating ancient Uchiha shrines with disturbing information. The stone tablet in the main Uchiha shrine has been tampered with, he reported during the command briefing. Portions of the text were altered, apparently centuries ago, to direct readers towards specific conclusions about the Rinnegan and the Biju. Altered how? Naruto asked, leaning forward intently. The original text described the Biju as separate entities created by the Sage of Six Paths to prevent the return of something called the 10 Tails, Sasuke explained. The altered version subtly suggests that reuniting them would grant divine power to the wielder. A manipulation spanning generations, Shikamaru Nara, another Konoha representative, observed, setting the stage for someone to eventually pursue the collection of all Biju. The question is who could execute such a long-term deception, Naruto mused, and why Black Zetsu would refer to this manipulator as Mother. The meeting was interrupted by an urgent message from one of the sensor teams deployed along the northern border of Fire Country. Juggernaut-sama, we've detected an unusual chakra signature matching the parameters for Black Zetsu. Multiple white Zetsu entities are also present, converging on a remote temple site. Naruto's decision was immediate. Primary strike team deploys in 10 minutes. B, Sasuke, Gaara, you're with me. Support team follows at standard distance. All other forces maintain current positions and alert status. Within minutes, the elite team was airborne, transported by one of Kumogakure's specialized summons, a massive thunderhawk capable of carrying multiple passengers at high speed. As they approached the coordinates, Killer Bee's expression grew troubled. Something feels wrong about this, brother, he said quietly. The Eight Tails is agitated, says there's an ancient presence nearby, something that predates even the Biju. Naruto nodded grimly. The Kyuubi has been unusually quiet since we began hunting Black Zetsu, almost as if it's afraid to draw attention to itself. Gaara, who had developed a much healthier relationship with his Biju since Naruto and B had helped stabilize his seal years ago, confirmed the pattern. Shukaku senses it too. There's something primordial at our destination. They landed a kilometer from the temple site, approaching with caution through dense forest. The ancient structure came into view, a crumbling stone edifice half reclaimed by nature, adorned with weathered carvings that depicted a massive tree and a single eye. Hold, Naruto commanded, raising his hand as they reached the temple perimeter. I sense movement inside, multiple signatures, but one dominating the others. Sasuke activated his Sharingan, scanning the structure. I count 13 white Zetsu clones surrounding a central chamber. Black Zetsu is there too, but it's different somehow, more substantial. We need to observe before engaging, Naruto decided. B, circle west with Gaara. Sasuke and I will approach from the east. Maintain communication seals active at all times. As they separated to execute the flanking maneuver, Naruto's enhanced senses detected a subtle shift in the air, a pressure change that had nothing to do with natural weather patterns. Something was building within the temple, power accumulating in ways that transcended normal chakra manipulation, reaching a position that offered visual access to the temple's main chamber through a collapsed section of wall. Naruto and Sasuke witnessed a scene that confirmed their worst suspicions. Black Zetsu stood at the center of a complex array of ceiling marks, directing white Zetsu clones and positioning what appeared to be collected fragments of something crystal-like. "Those crystals," Sasuke whispered, "they contain chakra signatures similar to Biju, but fragmented, incomplete." Before Naruto could respond, Black Zetsu's voice carried clearly to their position. The collection proceeds as planned. With each fragment of the divine tree's fruit, Mother's revival draws closer. The foolish villages believe they hunt us, never realizing they merely react to a play centuries in the making. Naruto signaled to Bee and Gaara through the communication seal, conveying what they discovered. The response was immediate. They had overheard similar revelations from their position. "We need to disrupt whatever ritual they're preparing," Naruto decided. "Bee, Gaara, create a diversion at the western entrance. Sasuke and I will target Black Zetsu directly." The coordinated attack began with devastating precision. Killer Bee, partially transformed with the Hachibi's tentacles, crashed through the western wall, while Gaara's sand flooded into the temple from multiple openings, immediately engaging the white Zetsu clones. Simultaneously, Naruto launched himself through the opening with unstoppable momentum, Sasuke following with a Chidori already crackling in his hand. Black Zetsu reacted with unexpected speed, the shadowy substance of its form rippling as it evaded Naruto's initial charge. "The Juggernaut," it hissed, genuine alarm in its voice. "You're too early. The timeline isn't ready yet." "Timeline ends now," Naruto declared, the crimson bands of Cyttorak erupting from his hands toward the shadow entity. The mystical energy seared through several white Zetsu clones that attempted to intercept, reducing them to ash on contact. Black Zetsu retreated deeper into the temple, its form seeming to flow through solid stone. Naruto pursued relentlessly, his momentum carrying him through walls and barriers without slowing. Behind him, Sasuke engaged the remaining white Zetsu with methodical efficiency, his Sharingan tracking their movements before they could form. The pursuit led to a subterranean chamber beneath the temple, an ancient space dominated by a massive stone altar. Carved into the altar's surface was a relief depicting a woman with horns emerging from what appeared to be a tree bearing fruit. Black Zetsu had positioned itself against this carving, its shadowy substance seeming to merge with the stone. "You understand nothing of what you interfere with," it addressed Naruto. The sage's deception ends soon. Mother returns to reclaim what was stolen from her. "I've heard enough cryptic threats," Naruto replied, the full power of the Juggernaut manifesting around him in a crimson aura. "Whatever your mother is, whatever plan you've been advancing for centuries, it ends today." Black Zetsu's form rippled with what might have been amusement. "You believe the battle is just beginning, but it's already over. Your presence here was anticipated, calculated for. Even the Juggernaut of Cyttorak plays a role in Mother's return." Before Naruto could respond, the altar began to glow with an eerie light. The stone carving of the horned woman seemed to ripple, as if something beneath was struggling to emerge. Black Zetsu's form flowed into the carving, its substance absorbed by the stone. "Crimson bands of Cyttorak," Naruto invoked, directing the mystical restraints toward the altar. The bands wrapped around the stone, containing whatever energy was building within. For a moment, it seemed the power might be successfully suppressed. Then something impossible happened. The bands began to dissolve, their mystical energy absorbed by the stone itself. Naruto felt Cyttorak's power being drawn from him, pulled toward the altar by some force that could manipulate even extra-dimensional energy. "Naruto," Bee's voice called as he and the others arrived at the chamber entrance. "Something's wrong. The Biju are reacting." Indeed, Naruto could feel the Kyuubi stirring within his seal, its chakra fluctuating wildly in response to whatever force was emerging. Gaara clutched his head in pain, the one tail similarly disturbed. "Everyone back," Naruto commanded, pouring more power into the rapidly failing bands. "Something's coming through that altar." Before they could retreat, a blinding flash filled the chamber. When their vision cleared, a figure stood before the altar, a pale woman with flowing white hair, horns protruding from her forehead, and a third eye visible in the center of her brow. At last, she spoke, her voice carrying unnatural harmonics. After millennia trapped between dimensions, Kaguya Otsutsuki returns to claim what is rightfully hers. Mother. Black Zetsu's voice emerged from the shadows still connected to her feet. The preparations are incomplete. The Biju remains scattered. The divine tree not yet reconstituted. It matters not, Kaguya replied, her gaze fixing on Naruto. I sense fragments of my power within these vessels. They will serve as the beginning. She extended her hand toward Naruto, and he felt something pull at the Kyuubi's chakra, not extracting it, but resonating with it, as if recognizing a missing piece of herself. The sensation was unlike anything he'd experienced, a direct assault not on his body or mind, but on the very essence of the Biju sealed within him. I don't think so, Naruto growled, Cyttorak's power surging in response to the threat. The mystical energy flowed through his entire being, creating a barrier between Kaguya's influence and the Kyuubi's chakra. Whatever you are, whatever connection you have to the Biju, you're not taking what's mine. Kaguya's expression registered surprise, perhaps the first time in millennia that her will had been directly challenged. Interesting. You possess power not of this world, not derived from my chakra. What are you, human? I am the Crimson Juggernaut, avatar of Cyttorak, Naruto declared, taking a step forward as crimson energy coalesced around his armored form. And you're trespassing in a world under my protection. What followed was unlike any battle the shinobi world had witnessed. Kaguya's power was primal, reality warping. She opened dimensional rifts with casual gestures, manipulated gravity itself, and commanded all 5 basic elements simultaneously. Yet each attack broke against Naruto's juggernaut form, the mystical protection of Cyttorak, proving resistant even to her dimensional manipulations. Bee, Gaara, and Sasuke found themselves unable to directly engage. The collateral energy from the clash between Juggernaut and Otsutsuki threatened to tear the ancient temple apart. Instead, they focused on containing the structural damage, preventing the battle from spreading to the surface. Your defiance is impressive, but futile, Kaguya stated after several minutes of failed attempts to breach Naruto's defenses. I am the progenitor of all chakra in this world. Even your external power must eventually yield to the fundamental laws of this reality. You're wrong on both counts, Naruto countered, gathering energy for a counterattack. First, Cyttorak's domain transcends dimensional boundaries. Your reality is just one of countless others he influences. Second, he smiled coldly beneath his helmet, I'm not alone. At that moment, Killer Bee channeled the Hachibi's power into a focus-tailed beast ball, launching it not at Kaguya directly, but at the altar behind her, the anchor point of her manifestation. Simultaneously, Gaara's sand compressed around the fragments of crystal that had facilitated her arrival, crushing them to dust. Sasuke, having analyzed the sealing array with his Sharingan, systematically disrupted its key nodes with precision lightning strikes. Kaguya's expression shifted from confidence to alarm as she felt her connection to the physical world weaken. No, the convergence is incomplete. I cannot fully manifest without all the Biju, Naruto finished for her. Which you're not getting. He extended both hands, crimson energy spiraling between them into a concentrated sphere. Crimson Cosmos of Cyttorak. The mystical technique exploded outward, enveloping Kaguya in a field of pure, extra-dimensional energy. Unlike conventional attacks that she could absorb or redirect, Cyttorak's power existed outside her domain of influence. She struggled against the containment, her form beginning to destabilize as the anchor points of her manifestation were systematically destroyed by the coordinated attack. This is merely a delay, she declared, her voice distorting as her physical form began to dissolve. I have waited millennia. I can wait longer. My will endures through Black Zetsu. My chakra endures through the Biju. I am eternal. Maybe, Naruto acknowledged, maintaining the Crimson Cosmos at maximum intensity. But not today. With a final surge of power, he collapsed the containment field inward. Kaguya's partially manifested form compressed into a single point of brilliant light before vanishing entirely, leaving only a scorch mark on the ancient stone floor. Black Zetsu's shadow, separated from its master in the final moments, attempted to flee, but found itself captured in a modified version of the Crimson Bands. one designed specifically to contain its unique substance. This changes nothing, Black Zetsu hissed as it struggled against the restraints. Mother's will is absolute. She will return. The cycle continues. Naruto approached the captive shadow, studying it thoughtfully. I'm counting on that, he replied, because now we know what we're fighting, and next time, we'll be better prepared. As they secured Black Zetsu for transport and began cataloging the temple's artifacts, B approached Naruto with a troubled expression. That was no ordinary enemy, brother. That was something primordial. Kaguya Otsutsuki, Sasuke supplied, examining ancient inscriptions on the chamber walls. According to these records, she came from beyond the stars, consumed the fruit of the divine tree, and became the first wielder of chakra in our world. And apparently, Gaara added, she's the origin of the Biju somehow. Shukaku is unsettled by her appearance. It remembers her, but the memories are fragmented, traumatic. Naruto nodded grimly. The Kyuubi has a similar reaction. Whatever connection exists between Kaguya and the Biju, it's fundamental to understanding the threat we face. As they emerged from the ruined temple, the support team had already established a secure perimeter. Shikamaru approached, his expression serious. Juggernaut-sama, we've received urgent communications from the task force headquarters. Similar energy signatures to what we encountered here have been detected at 3 other ancient sites across the elemental nations. Aftershocks of Kaguya's attempted manifestation, Naruto surmised, or perhaps contingencies Black Zetsu established. Either way, Sasuke observed, this was just the opening move in a much larger game. Naruto's expression hardened with resolve. Then we'd better start playing to win. The revelation of Kaguya Otsutsuki's existence and the true nature of Black Zetsu's millennia-spanning manipulation transformed the Joint Task Force's mission. What had begun as a hunt for a dangerous Akatsuki affiliate became a race to uncover and neutralize an ancient threat to the entire shinobi world. Naruto established a new organizational structure, dividing the task force into specialized teams. Research units, comprised of scholars and archivists from all villages, began piecing together fragmented historical accounts of Kaguya, the divine tree, and the origin of chakra itself. Reconnaissance teams sought out and secured ancient sites connected to the Sage of Six Paths and his immediate descendants. Defense squads implemented new protocols for Jinchūriki protection, incorporating knowledge of Kaguya's chakra-draining abilities. 4 months after the temple incident, Naruto stood in the command center of the task force headquarters, reviewing reports from these various initiatives. The captured Black Zetsu, contained in a specially designed prison that combined Cyttorak's mystical energy with sophisticated sealing techniques, had provided valuable intelligence, though always with cryptic warnings about the inevitability of Kaguya's return. The pattern is becoming clear, Shikamaru explained, indicating points on a map where ancient sites had been discovered. These locations form a precise geometric arrangement when viewed from above, a massive seal array spanning the entire continent. A seal for what purpose? Naruto asked, studying the pattern. Based on our analysis of recovered artifacts and Black Zetsu's statements, we believe it's a dimensional anchor, Shikamaru replied. The Sage of Six Paths apparently created it to prevent Kaguya's return from wherever he banished her. And Black Zetsu has been systematically weakening this seal for centuries, Sasuke added, joining the conversation. Manipulating events, encouraging conflicts that damage key anchor points, positioning pieces for the eventual collection of all Biju. Naruto absorbed this information with growing concern. So even our victory at the temple was part of a larger pattern. We prevented her full manifestation, but may have further weakened the dimensional barriers in the process. Exactly, Shikamaru confirmed. Each attempt, successful or not, deteriorates the seal's integrity. According to our calculations, we have perhaps a year before the barriers weaken to the point where another manifestation becomes possible, regardless of whether all Biju are collected. This timeline created a new urgency. Naruto convened the task force's leadership council, comprising representatives from each village along with key specialists. The ensuing strategy session lasted through the night, debates sometimes growing heated as different approaches were proposed and evaluated. We have 2 fundamental options, Naruto summarized as dawn approached. reinforce the existing seal created by the sage, essentially buying time but maintaining the status quo, or develop a permanent solution that eliminates the threat of Kaguya entirely. The first option is more immediately achievable, Tamari of Suna pointed out. We've already identified techniques that could strengthen the weakened anchor points. But it's just delaying the inevitable, Dari of Kumo countered. If Black Zetsu's existence proves anything, it's that given enough time, any seal can be undermined. Sasuke, who had become one of Naruto's most trusted advisors despite their different village affiliations, proposed a third alternative. What if we could reverse the process? Instead of preventing Kaguya from entering our dimension, we bring her here under controlled conditions and deal with her permanently. The suggestion sent ripples of alarm through the gathering. Deliberately manifest an entity of her power? Chojuro of Kiri questioned. The risk seems unacceptable. Not if we're properly prepared, Naruto said thoughtfully, warming to the concept. During our brief encounter, I confirmed that Cyttorak's power affects her differently than conventional Shino chakra techniques. She couldn't absorb or redirect it. And with multiple Jinchūriki working in concert, B added, we might be able to disrupt her connection to the Biju chakra she seeks to reclaim. The discussion continued, technical details and contingencies debated extensively. Eventually, a consensus emerged. They would pursue Sasuke's approach, but with extensive preparation and multiple fallback options. The plan would require unprecedented cooperation among the villages, combining their unique strengths and knowledge. Over the following months, this preparation consumed the task force's resources. Naruto's leadership was tested repeatedly as he balanced competing village interests while maintaining focus on their common goal. His unique position, respected by all villages yet fundamentally loyal to Kumogakure, proved essential in navigating the complex political landscape. The preparation phase also brought personal challenges. As the plan developed, it became clear that the Jinchūriki would play central roles in both drawing out Kaguya and confronting her power. This placed Naruto, Bei, and Gaara at the heart of the most dangerous aspect of the operation. I don't like it. Stated bluntly during a private meeting with Naruto in the Kumogakure enclave at the headquarters. Placing both of our Jinchūriki at risk simultaneously violates every strategic principle we've established. With respect, Raikage-sama, Naruto replied. The principles were established for conventional threats. Kaguya is something else entirely. If we fail to address her now, there may not be a Kumogakure to protect in the future. Studied his protege thoughtfully. The boy he had welcomed into his village years ago had grown into a leader whose strategic vision sometimes exceeded his own. Your connection to Cyttorak gives you unique insight into these interdimensional matters, he acknowledged. But remember where your true strength comes from, Naruto. I haven't forgotten, Naruto assured him. Kumogakure gave me a home when I had none, a purpose when I was lost. That debt can never be repaid. It's not about debt, corrected him, his gruff voice softening slightly. It's about family. You and B, you're more than weapons or assets to Kumo. You're its sons. The sentiment, rarely expressed by the stoic Raikage, reinforced Naruto's resolve. Whatever cosmic significance Kaguya and the Biju might hold, his foundation remained in the human connections he had formed, with Killer B, with the Raikage, with the village that had embraced him. As the day of the operation approached, final preparations were completed. The target location, an ancient crater believed to be the site where the divine tree originally grew, was secured and surrounded by concentric defensive perimeters. The ritual that would temporarily weaken the dimensional barriers was refined and tested on smaller scales. Contingency plans were established for various scenarios, including worst-case outcomes. The night before the operation, Naruto found himself unable to rest. He stood on the high plateau overlooking the crater, the full moon illuminating the barren landscape. Footsteps approached from behind, Killer B, similarly restless. Big day tomorrow, you know how it goes, B greeted him, his rhymes a familiar comfort. Facing a goddess from beyond the stars, hope we don't end up with fatal scars. Naruto smiled slightly. We've faced worse odds. Have we? B questioned seriously. This isn't some missing nin or even an organization like Akatsuki. This is the origin of chakra itself. Even the Juggernaut might find his limits tested. Perhaps, Naruto acknowledged, but that's precisely why we need to face her. If there are limits to my power, better to discover them with you and the others at my side than alone when some future crisis emerges. B nodded, understanding the wisdom in this perspective. Just remember, brother, unstoppable doesn't mean invulnerable. Even Cyttorak's avatar can be outmaneuvered if not outpowered. A lesson you taught me well during training, Naruto recalled with a hint of nostalgia. Though I seem to remember eventually developing counters to all your maneuvering techniques. Most of them, B corrected with a grin. Still got a few tricks you haven't seen, save for when your ego needs deflating. Their banter continued, a comfortable ritual that masked the gravity of what awaited them. Eventually, others joined them on the plateau. Gaara, Sasuke, and several other key figures in the operation, each drawn to this moment of quiet before the coming storm. It occurs to me, Gaara observed as they gazed at the moonlit crater, that we stand at a pivotal moment in shinobi history. For the first time, the 5 great villages fight as one against a common threat, led by a Jinchūriki once scorned by his birth village. History has a sense of irony, Sasuke agreed. The powers that villages once feared and sought to control, the Biju, the Jinchūriki, now represent our best hope against an even greater power. Naruto considered their words thoughtfully. Perhaps that's the lesson in all this. Power itself isn't the threat. It's how power is understood and applied that determines whether it builds or destroys. As dawn approached, they returned to their respective quarters for final preparations. Naruto donned his Juggernaut armor with deliberate focus, each piece a reminder of the responsibility he carried, not just to Kumogakure or the task force, but to the entire shinobi world that now stood united, however temporarily, against an existential threat. The operation began precisely at noon, when the sun's position would maximize certain energy flows identified in ancient texts. The ritual to weaken the dimensional barriers was conducted by specialized teams from Uzushio and Kumo, their combined sealing techniques creating a controlled thinning of reality at the crater's center. Naruto, B, and Gaara positioned themselves at precise points around this focus, their Biju chakra resonating with the dimensional fluctuations. Supporting them were elite squads led by figures like Sasuke, Kakashi, and Darui, ready to respond to whatever emerged. As the ritual reached its climax, reality itself seemed to waver at the crater's center. The air shimmered, colors shifted in impossible ways, and gravity fluctuated unpredictably. Then, with a sound like glass shattering across multiple octaves, a rift opened, a vertical tear in space through which a brilliant light shone. "Maintain positions," Naruto commanded as winds whipped around them, drawn toward the opening. "Containment teams, prepare for immediate activation on my mark." From the rift emerged a figure both familiar and somehow more substantial than during their previous encounter. Kaguya Otsutsuki in her full glory, no longer partially manifested, but completely present in their dimension. Her pale features registered first surprise, then understanding, and finally cold anger as she recognized the trap into which she had been drawn. "Foolish mortals," she intoned, her voice carrying across the crater without apparent effort. "You believe you control this summoning, but you merely hasten your own end. My chakra calls to itself. All that was taken from me will return." As if responding to her words, the Biju within the 3 Jinchūriki stirred violently. Naruto felt the Kyuubi's chakra attempt to separate from his own, drawn toward Kaguya like metal to a magnet. Beside him, B grimaced with the effort of maintaining control over the Hachibi, while Gaara's sand armor cracked as Shukaku similarly rebelled. "Now!" Naruto shouted, and the containment teams activated their prepared techniques simultaneously. Massive ceiling arrays illuminated across the crater floor, their intricate patterns converging on Kaguya's position. Specialized chakra suppression fields, developed through combined research from all 5 villages, activated in concentric layers. Sasuke and his team launched the first offensive salvo, a coordinated barrage of elemental techniques designed not to harm Kaguya directly, but to occupy her defensive capabilities. For a moment, it seemed the plan might succeed perfectly. Kaguya, still adjusting to full manifestation, was caught within multiple containment fields. Her expression registered genuine surprise at the sophistication of their preparations. Then everything changed. With a gesture that seemed almost casual, Kaguya released a pulse of pure chakra that shattered the innermost containment fields. Her third eye opened fully, revealing the Rinna Sharingan in all its terrible glory. The dimensional fabric around her warped, and suddenly the crater floor transformed, parts becoming volcanic, others freezing instantly, gravity itself inverting in localized pockets. Dimensional shifting, Sasuke called in warning. She's merging multiple environments. Naruto recognized the technique from their brief previous encounter, but at a scale and precision far beyond what she had demonstrated before. This was Kaguya at full power, the progenitor of all chakra exercising her dominion over reality itself. Cyttorak, grant me passage beyond her dimensional manipulations, Naruto invoked, calling upon an aspect of the Juggernaut's power he rarely needed. Crimson energy enveloped him, creating a protective field that allowed him to move through Kaguya's shifting realities without being trapped or separated from the others. B. Gaara, focus on Biju suppression, he commanded through the communication seal. Everyone else, fall back to secondary positions and implement Contingency Crimson. Contingency Crimson, named for both the Juggernaut's signature color and its classification as the highest threat response, called for a fundamental shift in strategy. Instead of attempting to contain Kaguya, they would focus on separating her from the dimensional rift, effectively stranding her in their reality, where she could be engaged directly, rather than allowing her to retreat and recover. Naruto charged directly at Kaguya, his unstoppable momentum carrying him through her dimensional barriers. She turned to face him, genuine surprise registering as he penetrated defenses that should have been absolute. Impossible, she stated, raising her hand to directly engage him. No mortal should. Her words cut off as Naruto's armored form crashed into her with the full force of the Juggernaut's momentum. For the first time in millennia, Kaguya Otsutsuki was physically staggered, forced backward by power that existed outside her domain of absolute chakra control. I am no mere mortal, Naruto declared, crimson energy cascading from his armor. I am the avatar of Cyttorak, whose domain extends beyond the dimensions you manipulate so casually. Kaguya's expression shifted from surprise to focused intensity. Interesting, a power not derived from my chakra, a variable Black Zetsu failed to account for completely. She extended her hand, not to attack, but in a gesture almost like scientific curiosity. Let us see the limits of this external power. What followed was a battle beyond conventional understanding, a clash between the progenitor of all chakra and an avatar of extra-dimensional mystical energy. Kaguya commanded fundamental forces with godlike authority, creating and destroying matter, warping space itself, manipulating gravity and time in localized fields. Yet each technique crashed against Naruto's Juggernaut form without achieving its intended effect. The mystical protection of Cyttorak proving resistant to even her reality-altering abilities. Meanwhile, B and Gaara executed their part of Contingency Crimson. Using techniques developed specifically for this operation, they established a resonance field that disrupted Kaguya's connection to their Biju, preventing her from drawing upon that chakra to enhance her already formidable powers. Supporting teams maintained the outer containment barriers, ensuring the battle remained confined to the crater. As the confrontation intensified, Naruto recognized a pattern in Kaguya's techniques. Despite her seemingly limitless power, she relied on certain fundamental principles of chakra manipulation. Principles that had recognizable structures, predictable formations. She's not improvising, he realized. She's executing established patterns, incredibly advanced, but patterns nonetheless. This insight provided an opening. Between clashes, Naruto communicated his observation to Sasuke, whose Sharingan could analyze these patterns more effectively. You're right, Sasuke confirmed after observing several cycles of Kaguya's attacks. Despite her power, she fights like someone with a fixed repertoire, immense but not infinite. Then we can anticipate and counter, Naruto concluded. Relay pattern recognition to all team leaders. We adapt our approach to exploit the repetition. This strategic shift marked a turning point in the battle. While Kaguya's raw power remained overwhelming, the coordinated forces began to work around her techniques, rather than directly opposing them. Naruto, as the only combatant who could engage her directly without being instantly neutralized, became the focal point of this adapted strategy, occupying her attention while others worked to systematically close the dimensional rift and implement a more permanent containment. Hours into the confrontation, with both sides having expended enormous energy, Kaguya attempted a desperate gambit. Recognizing that her connection to the dimensional rift was weakening, she gathered her remaining power for a massive technique, one designed to absorb the chakra of everyone within the crater simultaneously, including the Biju within their Jinchūriki hosts. All chakra returns to its source, she declared, her third eye blazing with unearthly light. Infinite Tsukuyomi! The moon above seemed to transform, reflecting the pattern of her Rinne Sharingan across its entire surface. Those who looked directly at it found themselves instantly enthralled, their consciousness being drawn into an illusion of perfect reality, while their chakra flowed toward Kaguya. Naruto, protected by Cyttorak's influence, remained unaffected, but he watched in alarm as allies throughout the crater began to succumb. Even Bee and Gaara, despite their Biju's resistance, showed signs of being influenced. This ends now, Naruto determined, gathering Cyttorak's power into its most concentrated form. The crimson energy spiraled around him, condensing into a sphere of pure mystical force between his hands. Crimson Cosmos of Cyttorak, complete manifestation. The technique, never before fully unleashed due to its potentially catastrophic power, exploded outward from Naruto in a wave of crimson energy that engulfed the entire crater. Unlike chakra, which Kaguya could absorb and control, this extra-dimensional power operated on principles beyond her dominion. It disrupted the infinite Tsukuyomi at its source, severing the connection between the moon and her third eye. More importantly, it created a localized pocket of reality, operating under Cyttorak's rules rather than hers, a space where her absolute authority over chakra temporarily ceased to function. In this moment of vulnerability, the combined forces executed the final phase of Contingency Crimson. Sasuke, having prepared a specialized sealing technique adapted from ancient Uchiha scrolls, activated the array directly beneath Kaguya. Simultaneously, Gaara's sand, infused with sealing formulas developed by Uzushio specialists, encased her lower body. B, channeling the Hachibi's power through a focus point prepared by Kumo's seal masters, completed the triangulation. Impossible! Kaguya gasped as the sealing technique took hold, dragging her toward a crystalline prison forming at the convergence point of these three forces. I am the origin, the progenitor. I cannot be contained by derivatives of my own power. Your power, yes, Naruto acknowledged, maintaining the crimson cosmos around them, but amplified and directed by something beyond your creation, Cyttorak's domain, which recognizes no authority but its own. The sealing process accelerated, drawing Kaguya inexorably toward imprisonment. In a final desperate act, she attempted to reconnect with the dimensional rift, to retreat to the space between realities where she had waited for millennia. Crimson Chains of Cyttorak, Naruto invoked, a variation of the band's technique he had developed specifically for this moment. The mystical restraints wrapped around Kaguya, binding not just her physical form, but her very essence, preventing the escape she sought. This is merely another delay, she declared as the sealing crystal began to encase her. I am eternal. I will return. All chakra is mine to reclaim. Perhaps, Naruto acknowledged, maintaining the chains at maximum strength, but not in our lifetime. And when you do eventually return, others will stand ready, knowing what you are and how to face you. With a final surge of combined power, Cyttorak's mystical energy, the specialized sealing techniques, and the coordinated efforts of hundreds of shinobi, Kaguya Otsutsuki was completely encased in a crystal prison unlike any seen before. The dimensional rift collapsed upon itself, severed from its anchor point by Sasuke's precise intervention. Silence fell across the crater as the combatants realized what they had achieved. The most primal threat the shinobi world had ever faced, the very origin of chakra itself, had been contained, not through overwhelming force, but through unprecedented cooperation and strategic application of diverse powers. Naruto, the crimson cosmos fading around him as he released the technique, surveyed the aftermath. The crater was transformed, scarred by dimensional shifts, bearing the marks of godlike power unleashed. But the shinobi forces had prevailed. Their loss is minimal, considering the scale of the threat they had faced. As the specialized containment team secured Kaguya's crystal prison for transport to a facility designed specifically for its eternal housing, Killer Bee approached Naruto, his expression a mixture of exhaustion and wonder. "We actually did it," he remarked, dropping his rhyming pattern in the solemnity of the moment. "We faced the origin of chakra itself and lived to tell about it." "We did more than survive," Naruto replied, his armor dissolving as he relaxed his manifestation of Cyttorak's power. "We proved something I've believed since becoming the Juggernaut. That power itself isn't good or evil, it's purpose that matters. Kaguya had godlike abilities but narrow vision. We had lesser individual powers but united purpose." B nodded thoughtfully. "The question becomes, what purpose guides us now? With Kaguya contained and Black Zetsu imprisoned, the immediate threat is addressed. What does the Crimson Juggernaut do when there are no more gods to fight?" Naruto gazed across the crater, where shinobi from all 5 villages worked together in the aftermath, sharing medical resources, coordinating containment efforts, supporting each other regardless of headband affiliation. "We build something better," he decided. "Something that preserves this unity without requiring an apocalyptic threat to maintain it." The months following Kaguya's sealing brought unprecedented change to the shinobi world. The Joint Task Force, originally formed as a temporary alliance against a specific threat, evolved into a permanent international body, the Shinobi Union, dedicated to addressing cross-border threats and facilitating cooperation among the villages. Naruto, having proven his leadership beyond any doubt, was unanimously confirmed as the Union's first commander-general. Though he maintained his primary loyalty to Kumogakure, his new role recognized that his influence and responsibility now extended throughout the elemental nations. The transition wasn't without challenges. Centuries of inter-village rivalries and suspicions couldn't be erased overnight. Political factions within each village questioned the wisdom of permanent cooperation, seeing it as potential dilution of their autonomy. Yet the tangible benefits of collaboration, enhanced security, shared intelligence, coordinated responses to emerging threats, gradually overcame these reservations. 6 months after Kaguya's sealing, Naruto stood in the newly constructed Shinobi Union headquarters, a neutral facility built at the convergence point of the 5 nations' borders. The main council chamber, designed to accommodate representatives from all participating villages, buzzed with activity as the inaugural session prepared to convene. "Nervous?" Killer Bee asked as he joined Naruto on the observation balcony overlooking the chamber. "Thoughtful," Naruto corrected. "We've created something unprecedented here, a framework for cooperation that doesn't erase village identity but transcends its limitations." "Your vision," Bee acknowledged with pride, "though I doubt even you foresaw this outcome when you fled Konoha as a child." Naruto smiled slightly at the observation. "Life's path is rarely what we expect. When I found Cyttorak's gem in that cave, I sought power for protection, for survival. I never imagined it would lead to this. This encompassed more than just the Shinobi Union. It included the fundamental shifts in how Jinchūriki were perceived throughout the nations, from feared weapons to respected guardians. It included new approaches to training and deploying shinobi, emphasizing cooperation alongside competition. Most significantly, it included the first sustained period of genuine peace among the 5 great villages in recorded history. As the council session began, Naruto addressed the assembled representatives with characteristic directness. "We stand at a crossroads in shinobi history. For generations, our villages have defined themselves partly through opposition to each other. Power was measured by comparison, security achieved through deterrence. Kaguya's threat forced us to reconsider these assumptions, to recognize that our greatest strength comes not from standing apart, but from standing together. The Shinobi Union doesn't replace our villages or erase our unique traditions. Instead, it creates space for something new to emerge, a shared identity alongside our individual ones. An acknowledgement that we are all, ultimately, inheritors of the same legacy, practitioners of arts derived from the same source. As your Commander General, I pledge to honor both dimensions of our identity, to respect village autonomy while fostering meaningful cooperation, The challenges ahead will test this balance, but I believe the framework we've established is strong enough to withstand these tests. The speech was met with approval from most quarters, though Naruto noted the reserved expressions of certain delegates, particularly those from villages that had historically preferred isolation or unilateral action. Winning their genuine support, rather than mere compliance, would be an ongoing challenge. Following the formal session, Naruto convened a smaller meeting with key allies who had proven essential during the Kaguya crisis. Gaara, Sasuke, Shikamaru, Darui, and several others gathered in a private conference room to discuss matters too sensitive for the General Council. Black Zetsu remains our most significant loose end, Naruto began without preamble. Despite our containment measures, I'm not convinced we've truly neutralized the threat it represents. Agree, Sasuke confirmed. Its nature is unlike anything we've encountered, not truly alive in the conventional sense, yet possessing consciousness and will. The containment facility reports subtle but persistent attempts to influence the guards, even through layers of isolation. More concerning, Shikamaru added, historical research suggests Black Zetsu has been presumed destroyed multiple times throughout history, only to reemerge decades or centuries later. Its patience is inhuman. Naruto nodded grimly, which is why I've initiated Project Crimson Vigil, a specialized team dedicated solely to monitoring both Kaguya's prison and Black Zetsu's containment. Rotated personnel, multiple redundancies, and direct oversight from the Shinobi Union rather than any single village. A prudent precaution, Gaara acknowledged. But it raises a broader question. How do we maintain vigilance against threats that operate on timescales beyond normal human perception? Black Zetsu manipulated events across centuries. Other such entities may exist with equally long-term perspectives. This observation cut to the heart of a challenge Naruto had been contemplating since Kaguya's sealing. The shinobi world had developed effective responses to immediate threats, missing nin, rogue organizations, even conventional warfare. But it had few mechanisms for addressing threats that unfolded across generations. We need to fundamentally rethink how we preserve and transmit knowledge, he proposed. Our current approach relies too heavily on individual memories and village-specific archives. We need something more comprehensive, more accessible, more resilient to political changes. A unified historical repository, Shikamaru suggested. Combining the archives of all villages into a single protected collection? More than that, Naruto clarified. A living institution dedicated to identifying patterns across time and space. Something that bridges the gap between academic research and practical application. From this concept emerged one of the Shinobi Union's most significant initiatives, the Sentinel Archive, a cross-village institution combining historical research, intelligence analysis, and long-term strategic planning. Housed in a facility adjacent to Union headquarters, staffed by specialists from all participating villages, the archive became a center for understanding threats that transcended conventional shinobi categories. As these new institutions took shape, Naruto found himself navigating an evolving relationship with Kumogakure. Though he remained fundamentally loyal to the village that had given him a home, his responsibilities as Commander General sometimes created tensions with Kumo's specific interests. Your priorities have shifted, A observed during a private meeting in the Raikage's office. Not your loyalty, I don't question that. But your perspective has broadened beyond Kumogakure's immediate concerns. The role demands it, Naruto acknowledged. The Shinobi Union can only function if its leadership maintains a certain independence from any single village's agenda. A nodded, his expression thoughtful rather than accusatory. I understand the necessity. In fact, I supported your appointment precisely because I believed you could balance these competing demands. He paused, studying his protege with evident pride. The boy who came to us seeking refuge has become a man who shapes the course of nations. Because Kumogakure gave me the foundation to grow, Naruto replied sincerely. The stability, the training, the connections, especially with B. Without that foundation, Cyttorak's power alone wouldn't have been sufficient. Speaking of my brother, A continued, he's been uncharacteristically philosophical lately. Says the world is changing faster than his rhymes can keep up. Naruto smiled at this typical B observation. He's not wrong. the shinobi system has remained fundamentally unchanged for generations. Now we're reimagining its basic structures in real time. Change brings opportunity and danger in equal measure, a caution. Remember that not everyone welcomes this new order you're helping to create. Old resentments don't disappear overnight, and some will see the shinobi union as a threat to traditional power structures. This warning proved prescient. As the first year of the union's existence progressed, resistance emerged from various quarters. Traditional clan structures that saw their influence diminishing, specialized shinobi groups whose secretive practices faced greater scrutiny, and political factions that had benefited from intervillage tensions. Most concerning was the formation of the True Shadow movement, a loosely organized but increasingly vocal coalition opposing what they termed the dilution of shinobi tradition through forced cooperation. Their rhetoric positioned the shinobi union as an unnatural constraint on village autonomy and individual shinobi development. Initially dismissed as a fringe perspective, the movement gained concerning momentum, particularly in regions that had historically suffered during conflicts between the major villages. These communities, paradoxically, had developed economies and identities around supporting war efforts. Specialized weapons production, intelligence brokering, rehabilitation services. Peace threatened their established way of life. 14 months into his tenure as Commander General, Naruto faced the first significant challenge to the Union's authority when a true shadow cell infiltrated a joint training exercise, sabotaging communication systems and attempting to trigger conflict between Konoha and Kiri participants through elaborately staged provocations. The plot was discovered and neutralized before it could achieve its objective, but the incident revealed vulnerabilities in the new systems being established. More importantly, it demonstrated that not all threats to peace would come from godlike entities or ancient conspiracies. Sometimes the greatest danger came from ordinary people resistant to change. In response, Naruto convened an emergency session of the Union Council to address this emerging threat pattern. The debate quickly revealed divergent perspectives on how to respond. These dissidents must be identified and neutralized with maximum efficiency, the representative from Kirigakure argued. Their actions constitute terrorism against the established order. Treating ideological opposition as a military threat will only validate their narrative, Konoha's delegate countered. We need to address the legitimate concerns underlying their movement while isolating the violent extremists. Naruto listened carefully to all perspectives before offering his own assessment. The True Shadow movement represents something we should have anticipated but didn't: the inevitable resistance to rapid structural change. Some of their concerns deserve genuine consideration, even as we condemn their methods. His proposed response balanced security measures with outreach initiatives, enhanced protection for Union facilities and personnel, alongside expanded economic support for regions negatively impacted by the transition to peace. Most significantly, he established formal channels for constructive criticism of Union policies, creating institutional space for dissent within appropriate boundaries. Opposition isn't inherently dangerous, he explained to the council. In fact, thoughtful criticism strengthens our foundation by identifying weaknesses we might otherwise overlook. What's dangerous is when legitimate concerns find no peaceful outlet for expression. This nuanced approach to internal opposition reflected Naruto's growth as a leader, recognizing that true strength came not just from overwhelming force, but from adaptive resilience. The Juggernaut's physical invulnerability had been complemented by political and strategic flexibility. As the second year of the Shinobi Union's existence began, new challenges emerged on multiple fronts. International trade patterns shifted as resources previously dedicated to military preparedness found new applications. Village specializations evolved as cooperative frameworks allowed for more efficient distribution of missions and responsibilities. Educational systems underwent fundamental reconsideration as the next generation of shinobi prepared for a world different from that of their teachers. Through these transitions, Naruto maintained a careful balance between his roles as Kumogakure's Crimson Juggernaut and the Union's Commander General. When threats required direct intervention, he demonstrated the unstoppable power that had made his reputation. When diplomatic challenges arose, he showed unexpected subtlety and patience. This combination, overwhelming force tempered by measured judgment, became the hallmark of his leadership style. 27 months after Kaguya's sealing, during a routine security review at the specialized containment facility housing her crystal prison, anomalous energy readings triggered automatic alerts. Naruto, immediately notified via the emergency protocol system, arrived within hours alongside Killer Bee and a specialized response team. Status report, he commanded as they entered the facility's central monitoring chamber. The crystal prison remains intact, the chief security officer reported, but we're detecting subtle resonance patterns we haven't observed before. It's as if something is communicating with it from outside our sensor range. Naruto approached the specialized viewing portal that allowed safe observation of Kaguya's prison. The crystal structure appeared unchanged, a geometric formation of perfect clarity, suspended within multiple containment fields at the center of the facility. Yet his enhanced senses detected what the instruments had identified, a barely perceptible vibration, a rhythm that suggested purpose rather than random fluctuation. Activate the Cyttorak-based suppression field, he instructed. The system, developed using principles derived from his own abilities, created a barrier that inhibited extra-dimensional influences around the prison. The resonance pattern immediately changed, not disappearing but shifting to a different frequency, adapting to the countermeasure. This response confirmed Naruto's suspicion. Whatever was attempting to influence Kaguya's prison possessed intelligence and adaptability. Full facility lockdown, he ordered. No personnel in or out until we identify the source of this disturbance. B, I need you to establish a Biju chakra perimeter. The Hachibi should be able to detect any anomalies in the natural energy flow around the facility. As these security measures were implemented, Naruto conducted a methodical inspection of the entire containment system. The design incorporated redundancies specifically to prevent external manipulation. Multiple independent power sources, physically isolated control systems, regular rotation of personnel to prevent long-term infiltration. Yet something had found a vulnerability. There, B called from an auxiliary monitoring station. The Hachibi senses something odd in the western quadrant. Not quite chakra, not quite natural energy, something in between. Naruto joined him immediately, extending his senses in the indicated direction. At first, he detected nothing unusual. Then, concentrating the mystical perception granted by Cyttorak, he identified what had escaped conventional detection, a hairline fracture in reality itself, similar to the dimensional rifts Kaguya had manipulated, but infinitesimally smaller. Dimensional breach, he identified. Microscopic but growing. Something is attempting to create a connection between our realm and elsewhere. Similar to how Kaguya initially manifested, B questioned, concern evident in his voice. Similar principle, different signature, Naruto clarified. This isn't her power directly. It's something attempting to access her through indirect means. The implication was disturbing. They had accounted for direct threats to the prison, physical attacks, chakra-based techniques, even conventional space-time manipulation. But this approach suggested a more sophisticated understanding of interdimensional mechanics than anyone outside their immediate circle should possess. Crimson Cosmos containment field, Naruto decided, invoking Cyttorak's power at a precisely calibrated level. The mystical energy formed a barrier around the identified breach point, isolating it from both the main facility and the external influence attempting to widen it. Within this controlled environment, Naruto could study the phenomenon more directly. What he discovered sent a chill through even his nearly invulnerable form. The dimensional breach bore energy signatures matching Black Zetsu, despite that entity being contained in a completely separate facility halfway across the continent. It's created some kind of remote projection, he realized. Not physical presence, but influence extending beyond its containment. Thought that was impossible, B remarked, his usual rhythmic speech pattern abandoned in the seriousness of the moment. The containment system was designed specifically to prevent any form of external communication. For conventional entities, yes, Naruto agreed. But we've always known Black Zetsu as something else entirely. not truly alive in the way we understand life. This confirms my suspicion that its consciousness exists partly outside conventional dimensions. Addressing this unprecedented threat required equally unprecedented measures. After consulting with the facility's specialist team, Naruto developed a three-phase response. First, completely isolate the breach using Cyttorak's energy. Second, trace the connection back to its source to confirm Black Zetsu's involvement. Third, implement a new containment protocol for both entities that accounted for this interdimensional communication capability. The execution was methodical but challenging. Tracing the connection required Naruto to extend his perception along pathways that existed partially outside conventional reality, a dangerous procedure that pushed the limits of even Cyttorak's protection. What he discovered confirmed their worst fears. Black Zetsu had been systematically testing the containment barriers around both itself and Kaguya, identifying resonance frequencies that could potentially synchronize their energies despite physical separation. "It's playing a long game," Naruto explained to the Emergency Response Council convened to address the situation. Not attempting a direct breakout, but rather establishing foundations for future communication and potential coordination. Given enough time, perhaps decades or centuries, it might have developed a method to actually transfer power between them. How do we counter an entity that thinks in such extended time frames? Darui questioned, representing Kumogakure on the council. Conventional containment assumes the subject eventually abandons escape attempts due to futility or resource limitations. "We need to fundamentally reimagine containment philosophy," Naruto replied. "Not just physical isolation, but dimensional isolation, creating a pocket reality specifically for Black Zetsu, one that exists partly outside normal space-time flow." This concept led to Project Crimson Partition, perhaps the most ambitious application of Cyttorak's power Naruto had ever attempted. Working with specialized teams from the Shinobi Union, he developed a containment system that utilized principles derived from both the Juggernaut's abilities and advanced sealing techniques from all 5 villages. The implementation required precision, coordination, and unprecedented chakra control. Naruto, channeling Cyttorak's power at its maximum sustainable level, created a dimensional pocket, a space that existed adjacent to but separate from conventional reality. Within this controlled environment, specialized sealing arrays designed by the combined expertise of multiple villages established boundaries that even Black Zetsu's unusual existence couldn't penetrate. The transfer of Black Zetsu to this new containment system was perhaps the most dangerous operation the Shinobi Union had conducted since Kaguya's sealing. Despite elaborate precautions, the shadow entity attempted to exploit the momentary transition, portions of its substance attempting to separate and escape. Crimson bands of Cyttorak, absolute binding, Naruto invoked, expanding the technique to its fullest expression. The mystical restraints wrapped around Black Zetsu's entire being, not just its physical substance, but the very concept of its existence, compressing it into the transfer medium. With a final surge of combined effort, Naruto's Cyttorak-based techniques, B's Biju-enhanced sealing support, and the specialized equipment developed for the operation, Black Zetsu was successfully relocated to its new prison. The dimensional pocket sealed behind it, creating a barrier that would require power on par with Kaguya's at her height to breach. As the operation concluded successfully, Naruto experienced something rare in his existence as the Juggernaut: genuine exhaustion. Maintaining Cyttorak's power at such intensity for an extended period had pushed even his formidable endurance to its limits. "You need rest, brother," B observed as they departed the facility, concern evident in his voice. "Even the unstoppable Juggernaut has reserves that can be depleted." "A temporary condition," Naruto assured him, though he didn't reject the assessment. "Cyttorak's power replenishes itself given time." This incident, while successfully resolved, highlighted a fundamental challenge facing the new order they were establishing: the tension between immediate crisis response and long-term vigilance. The Shinobi Union had proven effective at mobilizing resources to address specific threats, but maintaining constant awareness across extended timeframes remained problematic. During his recovery period, Naruto reflected on this challenge from the seclusion of a Kumogakure retreat reserved for elite shinobi. The mountain facility, with its spectacular views and natural hot springs, provided ideal conditions for both physical restoration and strategic contemplation. Killer B joined him on the third day, arriving with characteristic exuberance despite the serious matters at hand. "Heard you're bouncing back quick. That's my bro's trick. Cyttorak's power flowing strong won't keep you down for long." Naruto smiled at the familiar rhythm of B's speech. Nearly recovered, another day should restore full capacity. They settled on a cliffside overlook, the vast expanse of Lightning Country spread before them. Clouds drifted between mountain peaks, creating an ever-changing landscape of light and shadow. "Been thinking about what happened," B said after a comfortable silence. "Black Zetsu nearly outsmarted us all, playing the long game while we focused short." "Exactly," Naruto agreed. "We've built systems to respond to immediate threats, but we're still thinking in human time frames. Entities like Black Zetsu operate on different scales entirely." "So what's the answer?" B questioned. "Can't maintain crisis alert forever. People burn out, get complacent, systems decay." This cut to the heart of Naruto's recent contemplation. "I think we need something more, institutionally immortal. A system that persists beyond individual lifespans, that maintains vigilance through generational transitions." The concept that emerged from this conversation eventually became another cornerstone of the Shinobi Union's structure. The Eternal Watch, an organization specifically designed for multi-generational continuity. Unlike conventional shinobi institutions that focused on immediate mission execution, the Watch cultivated perspectives measured in decades and centuries. Its founding charter, personally drafted by Naruto and refined through consultation with leaders from all villages, established principles for sustained vigilance without paranoia, for knowledge preservation without stagnation, for persistent awareness of ancient threats without neglecting emerging ones. As Naruto's recovery completed and he returned to active leadership of the Union, these new initiatives reflected his evolving vision, a shinobi world that maintained its dynamic adaptability while developing institutional memory and long-term perspective. The balance was delicate, but essential, particularly as the immediate crisis mentality of the Kaguya period began to fade from public consciousness. 3 years after Kaguya's sealing, the shinobi world had transformed in ways few could have imagined before the crisis. The Shinobi Union, initially viewed as a temporary alliance against a specific threat, had become the primary framework for inter-village cooperation on matters ranging from mission assignment to educational standards to threat response. Naruto, now 21, had grown into his role as Commander General with increasing confidence. His leadership style combined the unstoppable force of the Crimson Juggernaut with diplomatic subtlety and strategic foresight. When necessary, he demonstrated the raw power that had made his reputation. But increasingly, his influence operated through institutional channels and carefully cultivated relationships. On the 3rd anniversary of Kaguya's sealing, a formal commemoration was held at Union headquarters. Representatives from all member villages gathered to reflect on the crisis that had catalyzed their unprecedented cooperation and to reaffirm their commitment to the new order that had emerged from it. As Naruto prepared to address the assembly, he paused in a quiet antechamber, gathering his thoughts. Killer B joined him, as he had at so many pivotal moments throughout their journey together. 3 years since we faced a goddess, B observed, unusually contemplative. Feels like both yesterday and a lifetime ago. Naruto nodded in agreement. The world has changed so fundamentally that it's sometimes difficult to remember how things were before. The villages operating in isolation, Jinchūriki viewed primarily as weapons, the constant preparation for potential conflict. Some things haven't changed though, B noted with a slight smile. You're still the unstoppable force you became when Cyttorak chose you. I'm still the finest rapper in the elemental nations. This drew a genuine laugh from Naruto. Some constants are reassuring, he acknowledged, our brotherhood being the most important. As they moved toward the main chamber where the assembly awaited, B placed a hand on Naruto's shoulder. You know, there's something I've never properly said. Something that's been true since those early days when a scared kid showed up in Kumogakure. Naruto raised an eyebrow, waiting. I'm proud of you, brother, B said simply. Not just of what you've accomplished or the power you command, but of who you've become, the man behind the armor. The sentiment, expressed without B's usual rhythmic pattern, carried special weight. Naruto inclined his head in acknowledgement, words temporarily unnecessary between them. Moments later, as he addressed the assembled dignitaries, Naruto carried that affirmation with him, a reminder that amid all the cosmic significance and political complexity, the human connections he had formed remained his true foundation. 3 years ago, he began, his voice carrying easily through the chamber without artificial amplification, we faced a threat that transcended village boundaries, that called into question the very foundations of the shinobi world. Kaguya Otsutsuki, the progenitor of all chakra, emerged from ancient imprisonment to reclaim what she viewed as rightfully hers, the power that flows through all of us. We prevailed, not through superior strength, for what mortal could claim greater power than the origin of chakra itself, but through unprecedented cooperation. We combined the unique strengths of each village, the diverse perspectives of different traditions, the varied techniques developed through centuries of separate evolution. The Shinobi Union emerged from that crisis not as a temporary alliance, but as recognition of a fundamental truth. We are stronger together than apart. Not because we erase our differences or abandon our unique identities, but because we bring those differences together in common purpose. As we commemorate this anniversary, we honor not just our victory over an existential threat, but the new world we've built in its aftermath. A world where Jinchūriki are valued as individuals rather than weapons, where knowledge flows across village boundaries, enriching all traditions, where conflicts are resolved through established protocols rather than escalating confrontation. This transformation remains incomplete. Old habits and perspectives persist. New challenges emerge that test our commitment to cooperation. The true shadow movement and similar resistance groups remind us that not all welcome the changes we represent. Yet the foundation we've established holds firm. The Shinobi Union, the Sentinel Archive, the Eternal Watch. These institutions embody our determination to learn from history rather than repeat it, to face future threats with wisdom gained through shared experience. As your Commander General, I pledge continued dedication to this vision. The Crimson Juggernaut's power remains in service to our common security. My loyalty to Kumakure stands undiminished, even as I recognize responsibilities that transcend village boundaries. Together, we have transformed crisis into opportunity, conflict into cooperation, isolation into connection. This is the legacy we now build upon. Not perfect, not complete, but fundamentally changed for the better. The address was met with sustained applause, a genuine acknowledgement of both the journey completed and the path ahead. As formal commemorations transitioned to more casual celebrations, Naruto circulated among the gathered dignitaries, engaging with representatives from all villages with equal attention and respect. Later that evening, as official functions concluded, he found himself on a balcony overlooking the Union complex, contemplating the visible manifestation of what had once been merely theoretical, a center of cooperation in a world historically defined by division. As voice came from behind him, the Raikage having approached with the quiet dignity that characterized his movement despite his imposing stature. Impressive speech. You've developed a diplomatic touch I wouldn't have predicted when you first arrived in Kumogakure. Necessity teaches many skills, Naruto replied with a slight smile. Though I suspect you saw potential I didn't recognize in myself. Perhaps, A acknowledged. Or perhaps Cyttorak did when it chose you as its avatar. Power without purpose is merely destruction. You've always understood that intuitively, even before you could articulate it. They stood in companionable silence for a moment, watching lights illuminate across the complex as evening deepened. Kumogakure is proud of what you've become, A continued. Our Crimson Juggernaut, yes, but also the architect of a new era in shinobi history. Whatever title you hold here, whatever responsibilities you carry for the Union, you remain one of us. Always, Naruto confirmed, the single word carrying the weight of absolute commitment. As it departed, Naruto remained on the balcony, reflecting on the journey that had brought him to this moment. From a scorned orphan fleeing Konoha, to Cyttorak's chosen avatar, to Kumogakure's unstoppable defender, To the commander general of an unprecedented alliance, each transition had seemed impossible until it was accomplished. The future would bring new challenges, new threats, new opportunities for growth. Black Zetsu remained contained but not destroyed, a reminder that vigilance could never entirely cease. The true Shadow Movement and similar resistance groups would continue testing the Union's foundational principles. The balance between village autonomy and collective security would require constant recalibration, yet facing these challenges from a position of established strength rather than desperate improvisation represented progress beyond what anyone might have imagined in the chaotic days following his flight from Konoha. The scared child had become not just powerful but purposeful, not just protected but protective, not just a weapon but a builder. As stars appeared above the Union headquarters, Naruto embraced both aspects of his identity: the unstoppable Crimson Juggernaut, whose power had overcome even Kaguya Otsutsuki, and the thoughtful leader whose vision had helped transform crisis into opportunity. Different facets of the same being, complementary rather than contradictory, each essential to the path ahead. The journey that had begun with Cyttorak's gem in a hidden cave had led to places no one could have predicted. Whatever came next, he would face it as he had faced every challenge since becoming the Juggernaut, with unstoppable determination, with the support of those who had become his true family, and with the confidence that came from having already transformed the impossible into reality. In the quiet moment before returning to his duties, Naruto silently renewed the commitment that had guided him since finding his place in Kumogakure, to be worthy of the power he wielded, the trust placed in him, and the future he now helped to shape. Not just the Crimson Juggernaut of legend, but Naruto Uzumaki of Kumogakure, brother to Killer Bee, protege of the Raikage, and now a figure whose influence extended throughout the shinobi world. The path ahead remained unwritten, but the foundation had been established. Whatever challenges emerged, the Crimson Juggernaut would meet them with the same unstoppable force and unwavering purpose that had defined his journey thus far: protecting what mattered, building what endured, transforming what needed change. The legacy of Cyttorak's avatar in the shinobi world was still unfolding, but its essential character had been established: power with purpose, strength with wisdom, momentum that carried not just himself, but an entire world toward a better future.
That's the incredible story of how Naruto became the unstoppable Crimson Juggernaut and found his true family in the Cloud Village. If you enjoyed this epic transformation, hit that subscribe button and let us know in the comments which character you want to see get an overpowered makeover next. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one, where anything is possible.